started hearing whispers of Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
Everyone in the Order knew Anakin Skywalker. Few would live to see what he became.
Anakin never got to finish my training. I walked away from him, just like I walked away from Sabine.
As a Jedi, sometimes you have to make the decision no one else can. But I'm counting on you to see this through.
We are no Jedi.
This is the Rebel Force Radio Ahsoka After Show.
May the Force be with you.
Well, I tell you what, that intro is a great reminder of how the legacy of Anakin Skywalker casts a pretty big shadow over this series. And this finale certainly points to that when you look at some of Thrawn's parting words to Ahsoka at the end. And then just sort of the contrast that's being made. Well, the comparison and the contrast between the relationship that Ahsoka had with her master, the relationship that she's trying to have, and seems like by the end of this episode, and by the end of this first season, does have with her Padawan, Sabine Wren. So welcome everyone to Rebel Force Radio and the final Ahsoka after show for season 1. Man, oh man, this last 8 weeks have flown by, and I'm at a loss. Sometimes when I was thinking back on the previous episodes, it's hard. Moments stick out, but individual episodes don't. So it really has felt like, for me, one big story, which you know, sometimes that helps a series, sometimes it doesn't help a series in terms of pacing. But this is one, and when this wrapped up last night, I thought, you know, when I go back and rewatch from the beginning, really sit down and go from episode to episode to episode, I think it's going to be a very, very different experience for me. But anyway, we are here to celebrate all things Ahsoka, Part 8, as well as the whole season. So we're going to have the number up on the screen later on. Please give us a call, sound off what you liked, what you didn't like. All comments are welcome as we take it all in and do the big finale here, Ahsoka Season 1. And if you're new to the program, so great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. Introductions order. My name is Jason, and with me, of course, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Wow, the final episode of Ahsoka Season 1. I'm bummed. I feel like I could do another 8 episodes starting next week. Why not? You know, let's just make it happen, Cam. But who knows what the grand plan is for this story, left wide open-ended. And, we're in a situation where everything is pretty much where it was before we started the series, except the tables have been turned. Instead of having 2 of our heroes from Star Wars Rebels trapped out in the other galaxy, or 1, now we have 2. Unless Thrawn is a hero of yours, you could say we already had 2 of them stranded out in the other galaxy, but we just traded places. That's what they should call the next series, Star Wars Trading Places. And will the next series be called Ezra, as he searches for Ahsoka? And then the series after that will be called Sabine, as she goes back for them both. It just could be a revolving door.
Eventually, can they all be in the same galaxy at the same time? That would be good.
I don't know, but I think if they work in a combination of Star Wars and DraftKings, we can bet, every season, whatever the show is, who's going to be stranded out in the other galaxy at the end of this season. We'll find out. I still think, though, with this open ending, and really, we don't know what the path is for the Mandoverse story beyond really Skeleton Crew. They might just take the whole thing and jump right into the feature film. So Skeleton Crew could tie into this somehow. And the Skeleton Crew, who we know it's Jude Law with 4 12-year-olds, kind of a Stranger Things Lost in Space meets Star Wars. And if it's true what we're hearing about that series, where they will be trapped in space or lost in space, what have you, they might come across Paradia and swoop in, pick up Ahsoka and Sabine and some of the Nadis and maybe Shin Hati and Balin's skull. What are we going to do with Balin's skull? Oh my gosh, there's
That's
so
what
much.
Dave Filoni was asking himself as he was writing those last couple of, what am I going to do with Balin's skull? I just have him stand on a mountain and look kind of mad or lost. No, that's the real life tragedy of this series. Is the loss of the actor. It's very clear that he's going to have to be recast. They can't. That's too big of an open loop for the series. They can't just drop it and pretend it never happened or kill him off screen. They got to get over this allergy they have of recasting. Just recast the character and move on with him. I just think they have to. Yeah, they have to.
There's not going to be some sort of way they write him out. Maybe he goes there and never returns, and Shin goes looking for him, and then she discovers all the things that Ray Stevenson was supposed to discover in season 2. That's what I would do. I would have him lost, just gone. Nobody knows where he is.
Why get rid of a perfectly great character just because the actor has passed away?
Because I think that the reason
every actor is replaceable.
I believe the reason we think the character is great is because of what Ray brought to the table. I really do.
Okay. Well, that's a fair point. That's a fair point, because what's on the page versus what ended up on the screen could say kind of two different things. If you were just reading the script, you might not walk away thinking that Balin's skull was much of anything. But like you say, what brings that character to life in such a compelling way is the face, the voice, the mannerisms, all that went into Ray Stevenson. I still think it would be a shame. I think that there's greatness that could be in the character. There is some greatness in the character and what he's after. And just to give it to Shin, man, I mean, she's got to go hang out with the Red Bandits. So she's busy.
Yes.
I was thinking, like, what is she going to be? Is she going to be like Snow White and those are her 7 dwarves? Or are they the 300 dwarves? Like, I just get the feeling like she's Smurfette just heading into the Smurf village. Like, she's the only female. I don't know. It just, I got a bad feeling about her. It was a very tragic moment where she just kind of surrendered, like, put the saber up. I'm coming in. Whatever happens, happens. I'd rather be with you guys than alone. It just that gave me the willies, that whole moment.
Yeah. And knowing that someone as powerful as Shin needs to have a tribe to run with, it does point to the other little hermit crabs, and it really gives them a sort of purpose for the series, because I was trying to figure out what their purpose was, but I don't think you can survive out in the lands of Paradia on your own. I think you need to have a tribe. And so that's why they were important to Ezra, and that's why Ahsoka and Sabine immediately returned to them when left alone.
Yeah.
It's, you have to understand the land. And we don't, as an audience, we don't understand the land at all, except it was really compelling to see it end with Balin standing there on top of the arm of the Mortis god, the father. He's on the statue with the sun carved into the stone right next to him. And the daughter isn't there.
No, the daughter's not there, which is interesting. And I was starting to ask myself if that's symbolism or if there's a reason for that. Is it, are we supposed to think that it's there just somewhere, we're just not seeing it, and so it's symbolic, or is it literally not there? Now you can see, as we see this on screen, that there's a gap between the statue of the father and where this other mountain range is. So is it gone? Was it blown up? Did it disappear?
Yes.
Got all kinds of questions.
So there was the statue of the daughter there, but maybe there's something about the spirits of Mortis that actually possess this mountain range, and maybe the essence, because Balin kept saying he was there for the power. And so maybe like the force power of the father is in there, and the force power of the brother is in there, but the head is gone for the daughter.
Oh, look at that. Okay. I'm seeing it now for the first time. All right. So you do see the body like you do for the son over here. So the head's gone. Okay.
Oh, I love this zoom. Do more of the zoom.
Yeah, there we go. See,
can we look at the other cats too? I just want to see everyone a little close.
So here's the father.
Should have gone and pressed my face up against the TV like I sometimes do.
That's clearly the father.
For the season finale, I did sit right in front of the TV, just right. No chilling on the sofa for this one. I was right on top of it. Wow.
And there's the son.
That's the son. Okay,
so by the way,
daughter.
I love how sure everybody in the chat is about all this stuff. Oh, that's because when the daughter died, guys, no one knows for sure. Stop pretending like you know for sure.
I thought they all died.
All speculation. Right, exactly.
But what I'm getting at is
Junk Man's here.
But what I'm getting at is that I think the bird, that owl, Moray, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
She shows up, and Ahsoka always, gives it the nod, the Star Wars nod. And so that might be where the Force essence of the daughter exists on a physical realm, is by embodying this bird. So there is no head of the daughter there, because that Force essence can't be contained. It flies around as a bird. That's why I think there's no daughter there. There's the shot of Ahsoka looking at that bird.
Yeah.
And it's not like the bird flies up in her face and starts talking to her or anything like that. I'm relieved of that.
No, I don't think there's, I don't think that there's any connection between the bird being there and the head of the there being gone. Like, it's just,
it's a stretch. I'll be the first to admit it's a stretch.
Yeah, there is enough meat on the bone of this episode that's really there that we can really bite into, that I don't think we necessarily look. It's all fun.
I'm just looking for answers, and so I'm coming up with whatever I could come up.
No,
with.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. But I just laugh at how sure of themselves everybody has been, and it's been a rough week for me a little bit on the socials, folks. You out in the listening audience know exactly who you are, but it's just they're so sure of themselves. They leave no room out there. Like, oh please, it's the comic book guy syndrome, because all this Mortis stuff, none of it's been resolved. None of it's been resolved. None of it's definitive yet. It's all still evolving. And so we're definitely going to get into speculation as to what Peridea has to do with Mortis. We know it's not Mortis. We know that the history of Peridea is such that this is where the Night Witches are from. It's where they started. And I heard somebody online saying that, oh, well, the witches, they used to worship the ones, the Mortis gods. That's a cool theory. I mean, is it true? Was it in dialogue? When did we learn this?
Right.
So, I mean, I just want to see. It's so fun to speculate, but stop couching it as if it's fact, because the lore is so thick and it crosses so many different mediums that when you go around and you start acting as though this is gospel or this is canon, it just makes it confusing. So until it happens, from Filoni's pen, it's all speculation. Good speculation, no question about that.
All right, here's a good one. This is better than my wacky idea. Was Fetmatic in the chat says the daughter statue was destroyed by the Night Mothers in a fit of rage. They stood there and they used their, they got in that triangle that they like, and they said a bunch of Kualalum, Shalom, Kralado. I probably just spoke 3 different languages right there, but then they cast their spell, and the daughter crumbles. They're like, yeah, that'll do it. I don't know. It's I always considered the whole Mortis story to be a more of a story like a allegory than something that should be taken so literally. And I think that's what Dave Filoni considers it as well. I don't see him ever defining Mortis.
I disagree. I think he is jumping into that pool with both feet, man. I couldn't even, but you could have knocked me over with a feather when those statues showed up in this episode. I could not believe that he went world between worlds and Mortis in the same season.
But see, it's been stated that the Mortis gods have shown up throughout history in artwork and in Jedi artwork specifically. So if this place is supposed to be maybe even the birthplace of the Force, maybe this is what all those writers and now James Mangold have been trying to tackle, is essentially the origin of the Force. Maybe this all ties into this, because
I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think that's where we're heading, and it's an idea that Lucasfilm has been messing around with for years, for like 10 years now, probably. And a bunch of writers have dipped their toes into it, from Benioff and Weiss to Leetta Kalogridis to Stephen Goyer to now James Mangold. And those are just the names we know. So I think they're really trying to solidify tie-ins to that era and tease us a little bit about that.
I think you're right. I think that the whole beginnings of the Force, the split from the Force that the witches take, the sword of Talzin, all of that, I think, has its beginnings in the origin of the Force story. All of that. I think that's yes. I think that Dave Filoni is doing a ton of world building here. He's setting up the future of Star Wars. It's not going to be found post Rey, in my judgment. They might do a one-off here or there. I don't see that necessarily evolving at the pace, certainly not at the pace that the track that Filoni is laying here. So
yeah, I think you're right. And I think this series was movie quality. I think especially this final episode, I felt like I was watching the next Star Wars movie. I really did. And it, you can tell they didn't hold anything back. But there's still no inclination that we're going to get a season 2 of this. And I worry about the financial straits that Disney Plus is in and how it has been in the red ever since it became publicly available, and it's losing money for Disney. I don't think that Iger is going to throw a ton of cash into a second season of Ahsoka. So that worries me, because if they're going to do a second season, it has to live up to the standards of this season. And those are high standards, I think. I think this is the best. This season, while, I've complained a lot about storytelling shortfalls that I've considered. And we got some payoffs to some of those questions in this episode, which brought me some relief. Also, as you mentioned earlier, Jason, you said, the social medias and stuff. Well, I was looking at them too, and I even jumped into the mosh pit a couple times over the weekend, and I was having a good old time. But it wasn't all like I was being closed-minded about it because, you know, I love and respect our community, and we are a community. It's a two-way street, so there's give and take. And I listened to what some people were saying about me being hypercritical about the storytelling and everything. And I started wondering, well, what am I really prioritizing that as part of my breakdowns? So it forced me to step back, and I rewatched the entire season over the weekend of Ahsoka. So now with this season finale, where I said, you know, we did get some answers to some questions. Oh, by the way, you know, thanks to everyone who is down in the mosh pit with me. I just want, you know, our listeners to know, I mean, we hear you guys, you know, we hear you. I'm not apologizing for any of my previous reviews, but we hear you. And like I said, it forced me to step back. And when I did so, I was like, okay, well, I understand a few things about the series maybe I didn't understand before, because you really have to take note of all the dialogue. And like, for instance, the guy, that Ziono guy, I'm like, why is the senator all on Hera's, you know, up her butt all the time? It's because I think she's used New Republic resources to try to launch a mission to go find Ezra in the past. It sure seems that way from the way Ziona talks to her, that he is keeping a short leash on her because she pulled some stunt, you know, probably right after the Galactic Civil War in an attempt to go find Ezra, and probably screwed up and made the New Republic lose resources. And Ziono then is watching her. He's like serving as a watchdog. He's the Senate Oversight Committee, you know, making sure nobody's.
Well, that sounds great. When is that episode going to be on?
But you can hear this stuff in the dialogue. He said, because he's the one who lays it out there. So yeah, so that would be nice to see or learn how Hera has been frosting these politicians' butts. And so there's other conclusions I was able to reach also, just from doing a rewatch and from this season finale. So we'll get there when we get there.
All right.
But I am relieved that we did get some answers to some questions in this.
We did. I wrote answers, underline several times in my notes this week, which is great. Let's go with the tail of the tape here real quick and let you know what episode exactly that we are talking about. We're talking about part 8, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. A little play on the title of C.S. Lewis's, of course, iconic The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Directed by Rick Famuyiwa, veteran director and executive producer of Mandalorian. And, of course, written by Dave Filoni, a great score by Kevin Kiner. Original air date October 3rd, 2023, and a runtime of 43 minutes. So there you have it, the final tale of the tape of Ahsoka Season 1. All right. Some really fun stuff at the beginning of the episode between Huyang and Ezra, and I want to get there, but Morgan Elsbeth is probably, despite the fact that she dies, she may actually come out of this as one of the most, let's say, well-developed or most developed characters. Like her arc, she really kind of had a beginning, middle, and an end, in a sense. You know, she finally got the big promotion, man. Then she bites it. That's the worst, you know? It's like you get the promotion, then you're... But Thrawn is all about, at the very beginning, he's not going to make the same mistake that he made in the past when it comes to the Jedi. And I, you know, was kind of ragging on him a little bit in the last episode. And I might have maybe been a little too harsh in that, because he really lays it out there and is about as vulnerable. This is the most vulnerable you get, Thrawn, is when he says, because that's the thing that's so annoying about the guy, is that he never admits when he's wrong, and he always tries to portray when he's wrong that he anticipated it and it was all part of the plan.
That's right.
But he says finally, he says, even I fell victim to the heroics of a single Jedi. Never again. He will not make the same mistake. And we see this multi-front epic war that he rages on our heroes. And it seems so over the top, but they keep surviving. They keep surviving. And it's only because he is so over the top aggressive against them that he manages by the skin of his teeth to get away, and albeit with Ezra on the ship. So yeah, he definitely learned his lesson, and he has more dialogue in this episode to give him just a more rounded out personality, with foibles. And it's, of course, you got the megalomaniacal villain. That's nothing new, but if you're going to do it live action, he can't be twirling his mustache. Like, you got to have, when they're living, breathing actors, you got to have some humanity there. And I was glad. I thought in this episode they gave some to Thrawn.
Yeah, right. He admitted to being taken down by a Jedi. Never again. And, everyone knows Thrawn's a glass half full kind of guy. He'll find that silver lining to the cloud.
Oh yeah.
That's just what he's all about. So, why dwell on your failures when everything should be a learning experience?
Yeah.
I was just listening to an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was talking about how he would never have been the successful guy he was if he didn't go along the road of failures. And he says he still does from time to time, and it still helps him grow. So for Arnold Schwarzenegger and Grand Admiral Thrawn, 5 dancing Thrawns. Here they are.
So getting back to Morgan Elsbeth. By the way, Mac's not the only one with props. I've got my Morgan Elsbeth figure right here. Brand new Black Series. Great looking figure. Incredible likeness. And I can't wait for the variant that's going to come out. I thought about getting 2 of them just so I can give her the smoky eye. Is that what the ladies call it? She had some major smoky eye going on with the makeup this week after she got the gift of shadows from
the gift of shadows
from the great mothers.
That's like Night Mother Bat Mitzvah. It's
well, I get the impression that it's pretty rare because we never see more. Even in Clone Wars, we never saw more than 3 or 4 at a time, and I think, even though they don't really come out and say it in this episode, that's what she wanted. She was picked by the great mothers because she was a descendant of the Dathomir witches. She had the power to hear their call. What do they say? Heard our dreams across the stars.
Right.
She delivered. Lord knows how long it took her to amass the fortune that she then turned into, the Eye of Sion.
Well, she was always loaded because she was running an Imperial shipyard on Corellia. So she was supplying the Star Destroyers to the Empire. That's how she and Thrawn were connected, I believe.
Okay. Well, she clearly had aspirations to, I think, take her place amongst the ancestors. I think that's what was in it, because I kept looking for a stronger connection between her and Thrawn. Again, the one you threw out there, very plausible. It's never brought out. What we do know is she has what?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
We know about the shipyard, but
it is mentioned that she has always been a supporter of Thrawn's, an ally of his.
Of Thrawn's or the Empire?
Yes. No, of
Thrawn specifically.
Thrawn specifically. That's mentioned in a super early episode, like 1 or 2. And we also know she had the Imperial shipyard on Corellia, which is now under New Republic control, but that's where they found the HK droids. That's where they found Imperial supporters there. and so that really implicated Morgan in a big way, and yeah, so that it's in the story. But as far as like, it's mentioned that she had a relationship with Thrawn, and that she was an Imperial weapons supplier or Star Destroyer supplier. It's never mentioned that that's how they met.
Right,
You know?
right.
But I
Yeah.
mean, I just figured, that's her Imperial connection. Thrawn was with the Empire.
Yeah.
And that's
But-
that.
But then the connection between Thrawn and the Great Mothers, Ezra explains that. He says that Thrawn found the place. He woke up the witches.
He woke him up.
Yeah.
So were they like in cocoons, or I'm just wondering how they sleep. They were hibernating apparently, but what for? And are they the only 3 on that planet? There obviously weren't other Night Sisters or mothers. They would have been in that citadel.
Well, but he
Right.
only woke up 3. My thought is that he woke up the 3 most powerful. They were the ones that
maybe
woke
all
up.
the sleeping ones
All the sleeping ones are in those caskets. His promise to them is that he'll return them to Dathomir. He'll take them to Dathomir and reanimate them and wake them up.
And then of course they would
And they will rise to
serve
power.
him.
Right, of
because
course.
he's the man. Wow.
Right.
Yes. So yes, he woke up. How did he wake up 3 of them?
Well, that
Did he-
Star
he went
Destroyer
down-
is really loud.
Well, okay. They were just the 3 lightest sleepers of all the dead Night
Right.
Mothers.
Right.
But okay. All right. So I just wonder if he like discovered the catacombs and went in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder what's in these casket-like boxes. Oh, bodies, they're caskets.
Well, you know him.
Then
He
how's he
probably knew
wake him
all the
up?
hieroglyphics. He knew all the languages. He knows all that ancient
Well, he does know
history and
that
art and culture. He's an expert on that stuff. So who knows? There could have been old spell books or old
Yeah.
the language written on the walls. He says a few fancy words. I don't know, but he wakes him up. And then I think the bargain that he makes is, you get me out of here. I'll load up all of the ancestors. We'll go to Dathomir, where your lineage lived on. You can reclaim your place as a major power in the universe.
Wow.
Yeah. So that it's his version of the Force. He's not a Force user. So how do you get him to the level of a Palpatine or a Vader? Well, he uses the power of others. So it's his great strategy mixed with, the otherworldly power of the witches of Dathomir. So, and then the other thing is, so she gets the smoky eye going on, which is pretty cool. She never, the one thing I've noticed, she always spoke with her normal voice. They might have done a little bit of processing on it, but she didn't speak in the voice of multiple people like the other,
She did.
great
Yeah.
mothers.
Maybe they didn't emphasize it as much, but when she's addressing those night troopers, she's got the effects going.
Yeah, it didn't sound like it was multiple voices, but so maybe she's not as schizophrenic as the other ones are, or as combined, as one, because she doesn't have the full look. I mean, the other one's definitely. I mean, she's got the start of.
Yes.
To me, it looked like she was just verging into this power. Wasn't like. Yeah.
She didn't have the pasty skin.
Right. Yeah.
But she was on her way. I mean,
And she got
she's putting in a good rookie season, I would say.
Yeah, well, while it lasted, she got the blade of Towson. So that
That's
means
interesting.
something. I mean, I'm assuming yeah.
So I've been unplugged really since this episode came out. I didn't look at anything online. I didn't look at any fan reactions. I didn't even look at the official RFR Facebook group. I muted the Jedi Council on my phone. Muted.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I just ignore you guys, but this time I made it a fish. Shut it down. Shut it down. So I did it, and I didn't do any research or anything. I just watched the episode 4 times and was busy doing other stuff. So I'm wondering, is that Blade of Talzin? That's from Clone Wars, isn't it? Didn't Mother Talzin use that at some point?
I don't know.
Maybe somebody in the chat will answer.
I don't
somebody
know.
can call in and answer.
Yeah.
Also, when they grab the eyes and stuff, isn't that what they did with Asajj Ventress when they put her through?
Yes. Yes. It was the
yes.
They grabbed her head. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that now that you bring it up. Yes.
But Blade of Talzin.
Yeah.
Somebody answer my question. Is that something we saw in?
Well, give us
Clone
a call.
Wars?
We'll put the number up here, 708-866-1737, and Tyler can flag that call for us, and we can put you on. If you got information about the Blade of Talzin, I'd like to know more about that. Oh, what a great shot. I think I've got a photo of it. It was just, for me, it was one of the... Oh, I didn't. How did I not get that one? But when Thrawn is flanked by the 2 TIE fighters taking off on either side of him, I thought, holy cow. And he doesn't even flinch. He just stands there.
This is a great shot.
It's very, really, very cool.
The cinematic nature. People are saying that Mother Talzin fought Mace Windu with it. Yes. Jar Jar Mace episode, she had it. So that's season 6, right? Lost Missions. Yes. Yes. Good. Okay.
All right. There you go.
It looks like she's holding one of those toy Hasbro lightsabers from the late 90s, you know? Just the
Batteries
shadows.
not included. Soon to be a $300 toy at a Target near you. The Blade of Talzin. So let's talk about building lightsabers. We saw the Blade of Talzin. How about constructing a lightsaber? This was a great scene. I know that I was really hard on this actor that plays Ezra for his fighting skills. I still think he has really lousy on-screen fighting skills, but damn if he's not.
I don't see it. I watched real closely. I'm like, what is Swank seeing?
Oh, that last episode was embarrassing. It got a little bit better in this episode. It got better,
because I'm seeing actual martial artistry going on there. I mean, you know, it's not like he's Jackie Chan or anything.
I think you were watching more Diana Lee and Asanto. I mean, that was real martial arts.
She was fantastic.
Everybody on the show, honestly, is really, really great with the fighting. I think that's just why he jumped out at me, is just not being so. I was about to give the guy a compliment. I think he's likable. He's likable as hell. He absolutely nails the characterization of Ezra.
He sure does.
He's got chemistry with Sabine actress out the Huyang. I love seeing them together. So this bit between him and Huyang, where he's building the lightsaber, was awesome. I love that they use this as an opportunity then to provide some answers, which we'll get to. I did go on a how old is Huyang rabbit trail, found out he's 25,000 years old.
Right. So which means he would go back to the era of the Mangold film, right? Isn't that supposed to be 25,000 years in the past?
Thereabouts. I think thereabouts.
See, it's all starting to add up now.
But, you know, here's Huyang. He's 25,000-year veteran of building lightsabers. He's built virtually every lightsaber, or assisted in the building of every lightsaber of every Padawan that lived in the Jedi palace, Jedi temple. And here's Ezra. He doesn't have time for that, you know. And it's just very, very Ezra of Rebels. So I like that they've kept the continuity of that character. I really feel that the casting on this show, I don't think it could have been any better. I haven't seen enough Hera, to be honest with you. I would like to spend more time with Hera to get a firm judgment. But as far as Ezra and Sabine, They are absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. Rosario has grown on me. It's taken a while. Loved her in Mando, loved her in Boba, but it was cameo kind of work for the most part. I like her so much better now that she's Ahsoka the White, and I do buy into the history of the character and why she was the way she was. But anyway, we'll get into to more of that. But I can't say enough about the casting. Everyone from, Morgan, Balin Skull, Shin Hati, they're all great. They just jump off the screen.
Thrawn?
I like them very much. Yeah, he's just not. I just don't love Thrawn. I didn't love him in Rebels. I don't love him here. He has moments that I really like him, but I don't know. He's just not my bag. Great if you love him. I talked to a guy at the day job today, and Thrawn's his favorite Star Wars character across the entire Star Wars universe. He's his absolute favorite. It's like, good for you, man. That's great. He's not for me. But it's not like I resent him or as a character or can't get into the action because he's on the screen. I just don't think he's all that. But
I always like Thrawn from the books and everything. And when I just remember a guy who's like really connected to like toy collecting as a hobby. He was telling me about how the Star Wars action figures were going to come back. And this is like circa 1994, right? And I just remember him telling me, yeah, they're going to bring back Star Wars action figures, and they're going to at least triple the amount of action figures they released originally. And I'm like, so you're talking like 300 Star Wars action figures? Oh my God, that's amazing. And he goes, and they're going to be putting out characters from the books. And Thrawn was the first character I thought of because he was that impactful to me as someone who's reading those books in the 90s. I thought he was the great next villain for the Rebels. And so I'm happy that they brought him into canon, live action canon. I'll agree. He's rather one-dimensional.
Very much so.
You always know what you're going to get from this cat every time he's on screen,
Yep.
So like you, I enjoyed seeing a little vulnerability from him in the beginning of this episode where he referred to a previous failure in his career and, let us know that he learned from his mistake and he was ready to move forward. But it also revealed the fact that Thrawn would treat Ahsoka differently than he would a typical opponent.
Yes. And why is that?
Because of Anakin Skywalker, of course,
Right.
And the Thrawn connection to Anakin, to me, seems a little shaky. I guess there's a novel that Timothy Zahn wrote where Thrawn and Anakin encounter each other. And I'm going to have to look into this a little more because I think that's what's fueling some of his statements in this episode where he says, I knew your master. And I knew what he became and all of that stuff. And you're going to, he's planting seeds of doubt in Ahsoka's mind. And so I see what they're trying to do with the character, where they're trying to take the character. But for the most part, he does come off as rather one-dimensional. But it's not like Emperor Palpatine. Wow, listen to me. I'm actually using an original trilogy character or moment to sort of prove modern.
You tell me that Palpatine, you can't take your eyes off of Palpatine when he's on the screen? The guy just chews up the scenery.
I guess. But but he had his shtick, and he stuck to it. He was always being pretty,
He had a range, though. He had the deep down like this.
Yeah.
And then
he had the
range.
You're right. He had that maniacal laughter. He had just pure spitting venom, angry and evil. And then other times he's just kind of chill there in his throne, just being like, yes.
Everything.
He's almost like Thrawn at sometimes, He's like, isn't he? When he's got the hood down low and he's just chilling in that throne of his. How about this? You want this, don't you? I mean, that's like Thrawn is like, oh, I like that delivery.
And maybe Thrawn stole that shtick from him.
He did, or maybe the Emperor stole it from Thrawn.
No.
Yeah,
you sound like someone on Facebook. All right,
I like
answers.
the cut of
Here's
his
some,
jib.
here's
I'm going to
some
start
answers
working some of his into my routine.
You want this, just as I expected.
All right, let's talk about some answers. We got some answers about the fallout between Ahsoka and Sabine. What really happened? Well, Ezra asked the question. Huyang had the answer. What happened between those two? What'd I miss? Well, Ahsoka became afraid that Sabine was training as a Jedi for the wrong reasons after what happened on Mandalore, which was, at the end of the war, the Empire purged the entire surface of the planet, killing hundreds of thousands. Her family were all lost, sadly. At the time, Ahsoka felt that if Sabine, here it is, here's the money line, if Sabine unlocked her potential, she would become dangerous. Ahsoka has already had her fill of ultra-powerful Jedi motivated by the wrong thing. So she walked away from Sabine. Now, you could say, oh, she abandoned Sabine. I always just thought it's one and the same. She abandoned Sabine. Well, yes and no. She just walked away, cut the loss. I can't touch this. This is too hot. This could go seriously wrong for me, seriously wrong for the galaxy. I've seen what happens. Been there, bought the t-shirt, right? Been there, done that. So that I really liked. I liked that they put that dialogue in there. And, you know, when I was upset about it last week, it's all it takes, folks. All it takes is one or two lines. Think about all that we learned right there. Now, some people were speculating that that might have had something to do with it. But I, for one, feel a little bit better when you've got a big elephant in the room every time those characters are together. We know once and for all exactly what happened, because guess what? Now I can take that into the next scene, and it makes those characters even, like Jim was saying, with Thrawn, one-dimensional. These characters become multi-dimensional when I know more about them, especially when they're not new characters. These are characters that I watched for 5 years, almost. So they're not new, and Ahsoka even longer. So, yeah, you do owe me that. You do owe me that exposition, because I've been hanging with these characters for a long time. So, loved that. Jim, were you surprised that it was that perhaps that penchant or possible darksider in waiting that drove the wedge between Ahsoka and Sabine, causing her to walk away?
There were some clues earlier in the season when they talked about how she was kind of rash and impulsive and things like that, and how Ahsoka held her back from, you know, when that happened, you know, caused the event that caused her parents to die. So that's the Night of 1,000 Tears, which was led by Moff Gideon to eradicate the Mandalorians from the galaxy. But was I surprised? Yeah, I was, because that line, that famous line that appeared earlier in the season and was in the trailers before the series even launched, when Ahsoka would say, I walked away from Anakin just like I walked away from Sabine.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I thought the reason she walked away from Anakin was, it wasn't Anakin she was walking away from. She was walking away from the Jedi Order because she believed the Order didn't have her back when she was being accused, and let her go through a whole trial and everything. And so she just had enough of it and walked away. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Obviously, Ahsoka had been struggling with her role as a general, a Jedi general, for a while and everything. So,
yeah, but it's not that. It's she did walk away. The thing was, she should have not walked away from Anakin. Her loyalty should have been to Anakin, not to a bureaucratic Jedi council. That was her mistake.
Okay, yeah.
She should have stayed loyal to her master, because he was always loyal to her. I think
I
that's...
would love to hear Ahsoka speak from the heart about this stuff.
Sure.
Because, I mean, we're talking about, we're scratching our head all season long. What is it? She walked away. Why did she stop training Sabine? Why did she even start training Sabine? Things like that. These are the questions we've been asking ourselves all season. We finally learn in the season finale. And I said to myself, well, what was the purpose of withholding that information from us this whole time? There was no mystery payoff, It just wasn't there. This is information that should have been fed to us at the beginning of the season, because it would have really got us more in lockstep with the character, but it wasn't. So it wasn't. We know why Ahsoka walked away from Sabine. Too hot to handle.
Yes.
But there's another thing. The other question is, why train Sabine in the Force in the first place? And that isn't really explained, other than the fact Sabine has always been extremely gifted, very skilled, multifaceted, and somebody who seemed to be, I mean, we would have conversations about her character during the Rebels declassified shows.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, sure seems like that character is force leaping and showing off Jedi ability and skill, but there's no indication that she's actually touching the Force. So it could be, it's an animated series,
right?
Some things are just a little exaggerated and things. So I think we played off that, but instead it appears that she'd always been sort of in touch with the Force, but couldn't really control it. Couldn't really tap into it to make it work for her.
Right.
It was just something that was swirling around her. Thus, all of her successes and triumphs as everything from a warrior to a weapons specialist to a graffiti artist. I mean, she excelled in everything. And she excelled in being a smartass. There was nothing that Sabine couldn't do. And that, to me, ruined the character a little bit, too, when we were watching Rebels. I have a much different outlook on Sabine now after dealing with the character throughout Ahsoka. I actually like the character a lot now, which wasn't really the case during Rebels. But that sort of gives us a little bit of backbone for why start training her in the first place. Also, she trained with the Darksaber with Kanan. But as Ahsoka even says in this episode, being a Jedi, it's more than just swinging a lightsaber around. It's way different than that. And Ezra himself has been, he refused his lightsaber. He couldn't build a new one quick enough after that, a couple skirmishes, but still at first he was willing to give it a shot. He wants to connect with the Force. So what I think the series is doing is it's showing us that as long as you work hard enough, as long as you commit yourself to the discipline, you can learn how to get in touch with the Force and train to be a Jedi, but you have to put in the work. And not everyone is going to be able, it's like, how many kids play Little League Baseball that go on to play in the major leagues? It's that sort of thing.
Right.
And so I think
even harder.
Really that's a big message the series is giving us, is it's taking back the Force. It's taking away the midichlorian counts. It's taking away the bloodlines. It's making it something that anyone can do, which is weird, because then why do the Jedi go out into the galaxy and take Force sensitive infants from their family? That's, how does anyone master the Force without studying it first? I mean, even the world's greatest baseball players aren't hitting home runs the moment they walk up to the home plate for the first time. They have to go through T-ball and Little League and all that stuff.
because it's more of a physical skill as opposed to an innate ability that comes from the mind, the ability to use the mind. I would say that what the Jedi are doing is that they're culling the ones that sort of bubble up as being, extraordinarily gifted. Not that there isn't potential, but why waste your time training somebody that may not have any real natural aptitude for it, when you could get these essentially these force savants, these force geniuses that are bubbling up. I think I love that. I think that's something that you could do a whole series about. But so it doesn't weaken it for me. The midichlorian thing is interesting because I think that what happened was, I think that a bunch of tie-in authors in the wake of the prequels really overplayed the midichlorian thing, to be honest with you. I don't think that George ever intended for it to be something that excluded others from showing their potential in the Force. It was just a device to show that this kid was really, beyond measure. I think that's what it was, and it sort of backfired on George in a way. So I like that Filoni's writing the ship here. I really do. So Sabine and Ahsoka make up, and I was glad that this scene happened. I was waiting for this scene because it's like, all right, another big elephant in the room is the fact that she essentially aided and abetted the enemy. How does that make Ahsoka feel? And I really like that Ahsoka leans back on her own history and all the crazy times Anakin stuck her neck out for her. And I think about all these Clone Wars episodes that we watched over the years, and there were times where, Ahsoka was following her heart and her instinct and her intuition, and everyone else was very critical of it. But Anakin always had her back, and she says that. Over the years, I've made my share of difficult choices. Often no one understood my reasons except my master. He always stood by me, even when no one else did. That's why no matter what happens, I'm going to be there for you. So she's recommitting herself to Sabine. Now, I think there's some foreshadowing in that, because they're throwing down some ideas that there's the dark side is in Sabine, that she might be motivated by the wrong things. And for Ahsoka to say, no matter what happens next, I'm there for you, that to me sets up, I think, a potential challenge in the future of their relationship. She's making this full-throated commitment to her.
Whatever happened to too old to be trained? Too old to be trained. Because there is a point to that once someone goes through a certain level of life experiences, it's impossible to discipline yourself enough to shut off all your emotions and all your connections and your history and everything. It's
difficult, but maybe not impossible. I think in the case, we hear that from Yoda with Luke. And I think that Yoda is scared of Luke. I don't think that Yoda, after the event,
I've never heard anyone say this. I want to hear that.
Why else would he throw that up? Up, too old to begin the training. Yes,
he did seem very dismissive.
All that, yes. He senses all of that Anakin-ness in Luke, and he's like, my God, we just look at what we've been through. We lost everything because I was too loyal to Obi-Wan, to Qui-Gon and his memory, to say no to Anakin Skywalker. And look what happened. Look what happened the last time. I took Obi-Wan's suggestion on who should be trained. It was the end of freedom in the galaxy. So listen, I think that's what it was. I think he was stalling, and he was just like, yeah, he's too old. He's too old.
I know that the Jedi are flawed. I don't need anybody to tell me that. I recognize that when I was watching The Phantom Menace, and I see why it's totally out of their nature to be serving as generals in a war. That thing was conceived to splinter the Jedi in 1,000 pieces, and it did exactly what it was meant to do. But yet the Jedi, as an organization was around for like 100,000 years or something like that. And so they must have been doing something right along the way.
Well, of course
Where did it all fall apart?
Of course they did.
Where did it all fall apart for the Jedi? When they became too involved in galactic politics as they served government.
They laid down with dogs, the politicians, and they got the fleas. Yes. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yes.
Now, I'm reminded in the chat that Mace Windu says that Anakin Skywalker is too old. Well, here's my retcon of that, if it requires retconning. Where do you think Yoda learned it from? He learned it from Mace. He's like, God, I should have. Hats off to Mace for coming up with that excuse. I should have ran with it. I didn't. And so when Luke shows up, he's like, too old, just like Mace said about your father.
No, I think the Order only recruited the infants, and they didn't ever bring in anyone outside of an infant to train as a Jedi. Because if they did, then really anyone could be trained. Anyone. But
anyone can be trained.
What's that?
Anyone can be trained.
Right. But they went out to find the cream of the crop, the best of the best.
Right.
And those are the infants that are demonstrating a connection to the Force without any training.
Right.
It comes to them naturally.
Yeah, it's like a test.
And so the Jedi pick up on this in the Force, or they look on the internet and they see stories about babies levitating things in suburbs outside of Tulsa. And I don't think Tulsa has suburbs. I think it's just farmland all around that area. But you know what I mean? It's
what you mean.
Like they go and they find the best of the best.
Of course.
So,
but it doesn't mean that they can't
but that's
be
not
trained.
A rule with the Force. That's a rule with the Jedi.
There you go. Bingo. That's it. It's not a rule with the Force doesn't discriminate. Only the Jedi Council does that.
Hey, I have one other thing I want to throw out there before we get too far away from that information that Huyang laid on us about why Ahsoka left Sabine. Because to me, I think that's an important back and forth there that establishes some timeline information that we should look closely at. Now, the Empire decimated the planet Mandalore at the end of the war, is what he says. But which war is he talking about? I think he's talking about the Galactic Civil War.
Yes, I think so too. Not the Clone Wars.
Not the Clone Wars.
Right. No.
He says at the end of the war. Well, the Empire emerged at the end of the war. So if they carried on the destruction of the planet Mandalore, it could have happened at the end of the Clone Wars. But I think he was talking about the Galactic Civil War, the original trilogy battle. So the Night of 1,000 Tears must have happened somewhere around the time of the Battle of Endor and Return of the Jedi. And Ahsoka was already training Sabine at this time. Because because it's what Huyang says. He specifically says at that time, Ahsoka felt that if Sabine unlocked her potential, she would become dangerous. At the end of the war, the Empire purged the entire surface of the planet. At the time, Ahsoka felt that if Sabine unlocked her potential, she would become dangerous. That means Ahsoka was present and around the rebels at the time of the Galactic Civil War.
Yes. But it was a war that enveloped the entire galaxy. So whether or not Ahsoka was out of the closet as, who she was, what she was at that time remains to be seen.
She had to lay low.
Right.
Because of Order 66.
Right. They hadn't won the war yet.
So she's with the rebels and she's training Sabine. So that's what she thinks she should be doing. Instead of going out on the battlefield and taking the fight to the Empire and confronting Vader again and confronting the Emperor again. she's training Sabine. Why is she training Sabine? So she has an apprentice to go maybe face them.
Maybe, but I don't know that that much hinges on the fact that it happened at that same time. Whether or not she started training Sabine after the Night of 1,000 Tears or before, I don't know that it. I mean, it matters because it puts Ahsoka somewhere during the climax of the rebellion.
Exactly.
So yes, it matters from that standpoint. Yes, for sure.
That's my point.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder how Ahsoka doesn't jump into action, because she jumps into action here when just based on mere rumors that Thrawn is going to return. Mere rumors. They have a bad feeling about Thrawn returning. But yet she stays on the sideline when the Empire's blowing up planet.
Right, man. I have struggled from the beginning with Ahsoka's motivation here and why Thrawn represents to her this existential threat. I'm with you.
Maybe Ahsoka embraced some pacifism and didn't, believe that the best use of her skills would be on the battlefield. The best use of her skills would be training an apprentice to join her to eventually become part of the big fight. But then, the Mandalorian thing happened. And so that corrupted Sabine as far as being a viable Padawan. And then right after that, the rebels destroyed Death Star 2 and the Emperor perished and the Empire was shattered. And Ahsoka was just journeying through the galaxy with Huyang aboard the T6, going where she was needed. That's what she says.
Right.
So maybe serving in something of a vigilante working in the shadows type role.
I think so, but I think I think the whole point, or a lot of the point that Anakin was trying to make, was that she was trying to live this third way, not fully committed to the Jedi. She wasn't a Jedi. She took much pride in saying she wasn't a Jedi.
Right.
I think Anakin was there to say, no, there is no third way. You can't be half pregnant and you can't be half Jedi. You're either a Jedi or you are not, or you're something else. And so she doubled down. She recommitted her life to the Jedi way. And it's even in lines when she's talking to Sabine right here during this sort of apology scene where she asks her about, or she talks about how Anakin always had her back, and she says, have you been keeping up with your skills, keeping up with your training? I try. I've gotten better better control over my lightsaber. Let me tell you a secret. Being a Jedi isn't about wielding a lightsaber. So she's not allergic to that word Jedi. I'm a Jedi. I'm training you to be a Jedi. So she recommits herself to that, which I think is awesome. And it's part of the whole Ahsoka the White thing. There's a lot of eye candy in this episode, though. I mean, some of the battles were some of the best I've seen in any Star Wars television. It was great because they went from battle to battle to battle. And when Sabine took out the two ties, I love that. When she just,
great.
She had one good push of the engines left. That's all she needed, more than she needed. She told Huyang, and then she cut them. And then, she's very Riley. Riley says, "Got him," and she gets out of the fighter. I thought that was very cool.
They always fix these ships by working on wires underneath the control panels and
somehow
stuff.
That reattaches wings.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Who's doing the body work?
Right.
I mean, in paint job and stuff. I mean,
right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
There's AI that does it.
Right. Right.
But it was a cool
Some
shot.
of it is self-healing,
Self-healing
materials. But yeah, the T6 crashed. It does look, if it's going to be the next Hasbro Pulse ship, don't worry, it comes back, gang. No one's going to refund me for my Morgan Elsbeth action figure, I tell you that. Yeah, but I wish that they would, back in our day, Jim, they would have re-released this figure with gut-spilling action, where you'd have been able to just like bend her in half in some
Or
green
you could
goo.
put like water on her face and it would turn her eyes black.
That,
and give her
yes,
the
color change
stuff.
features.
Color
That's what
change.
they needed to do. Oh, man, I'm going to dip her in my... No, I'm not going to dip her in that.
Be careful what you're dipping into Morgan. Hey, something about the T6, though, I didn't realize, and it happened in dialogue here. I thought that was Ahsoka's ship, but it's actually Huyang's ship. She says to Huyang, I'm sorry, I keep calling him Huyang. People are so mean to me about it. His name's Huyang. I'm sorry, I got some mental
says it
block.
fast.
Okay?
He says it fast. I hear Huyang.
Huyang, whatever. Beat me up over that. But it's not like that character has been around since 1977, so give me a break, okay? Ahsoka to Huyang. She says, "You've kept him in the sky longer than I've been alive."
Yeah, right.
And I like how people's lifespans are twice used in this episode when talking about their relationships to Huyang or whoever. Like Ezra says, he says to Ezra, "I've been putting together lightsabers since before you were born," or something like that.
Right.
Before you were alive.
Yeah.
And then she says, "You kept her in the sky since longer than I've been alive." It's like Huyang is talking to 20-something, 30-something-year-olds. And how old is he, Jason?
25,000 years.
Well, he doesn't care about how long these people have been. That's what I think is interesting about Huyang, is that he, for somehow being such an ancient droid who worked within the confines of the Jedi Order, where you can't do anything, say anything, walk out of step or anything. This guy somehow, as a droid, remains remarkably relatable to younger people. And I think that's because he always worked with younglings,
Yes.
But there's a certain consistency to, say, preschoolers and first graders compared to 20-somethings or 30-somethings.
That's right. Yes.
Yes.
And if those that are wondering, they're like, wow, he really looks good for 25,000 years. Clearly, he's probably been rebuilt many, many times over the 25,000 years, and the kernel of his, personality or whatever it is has been re-downloaded into various bodies. That's at least in my head canon. I think it's pretty unrealistic to think that clanker's been around for 25,000 years. Boy, does Thrawn really double down after he gets word that Ahsoka's ship has been downed. He says, assuming the Jedi ship is down, their options to prevent our departure are now severely limited, if not impossible, which is why we shall prepare for a ground assault. So, he get the ship down. I don't know whether, and I'm not going to waste any time. And I'm getting the ground troops in there, move them out immediately. He wants them to go in. So he is just not taking anything for granted here, and immediately sends in the troops. And it's funny because he asks Morgan, well, do they know? I'm sending them out away from the ship. And you know where the ship is going? The ship is getting the hell out of here.
Yes.
And she says, yes, Grand Admiral, they were made aware. They were.
But I think it's beyond that. I think it's the whole idea that we're throwing you into battle against two Jedi and one with burgeoning force powers.
Right.
We're sending you in. So the likelihood of you surviving isn't going to be great. But fear not. We're going to use Night Sister magic to bring you back to life. How do you feel about that? For the glory of the Empire. Yes. So
they were honored to make the sacrifice for you. Well, when they said sacrifice,
well, it is a sacrifice.
Well,
They're walking into almost certain death against Jedi, but yet not
I don't think they knew.
Certain
I don't
death.
think they had any idea that they were going to be zombified. I don't think. I think that what they knew was that they were to cause, at best, death and destruction upon the Jedi. At worst, a delay to allow Thrawn to get away.
No, because
Yes.
if they were just being sent out on a normal mission, then Enoch probably would have addressed them. Why is Morgan Elsbeth now commanding night troopers? She's not been part of the organized empire. Now all of a sudden she's commanding these guys. It's because she's giving them the lowdown on the Night Sister magic that's gonna reanimate them.
No,
That's what I think.
Okay.
That's what I think. Because Enoch would have sent them out, or Thrawn himself. But no, she was giving them the lowdown on what to expect. Hey, you're going to die, but then you're not going to die. Dig it. And your eyes are going to glow. This is all the stuff
why
she
would
was
they
telling
even
them
need to
before
know that? Like, why would it even be necessary for them to know this?
Well, Jason, it's so they understand that, so they don't question the whole thing. Well, you're leaving us behind. That's why they don't question. We're not leaving you behind. You're gonna be living dead.
They were volunteers. Were they made aware? Yes, they were. All were honored to make the sacrifice for you. It is for the Empire. I would be willing to buy your theory if the same scene wasn't repeated just a few minutes later, but it's Thrawn insinuating to Morgan that they need more time for the Empire. So now you're the one that's being thrown to the wolves. So it is interesting that it wasn't Enoch or Thrawn himself throwing them into battle, but I don't think that the pitch was that you're going to have everlasting life and you're going to be able to come back to the ship.
You know, it's like, it's hard to explain what people do for their idealism. You know, whether it be getting killed by Jedi and becoming zombie stormtroopers, or, you know, flying commercial airliners into high rises in New York. Yeah, it's hard to explain why people do what they do for their idealism. And I think that it was presented to them as an honor by Morgan that their deaths they will live for an eternity. And their their sacrifice will be for the Empire. And we'll come back and get you, is what she said too. Yeah,
I tell you what, more happens off screen for Mac when he's watching Ahsoka than happens on screen. I want the next season to be just what was going on in Mac's head during these episodes.
That's why I desire the exposition up front, is because I go into these mad mental tailspins when you leave me alone with the story and all these blanks.
Don't do that.
The insanity that goes on inside the Star Wars fan's head is really. I'm going to get me a straitjacket with the Star Wars logo right on the chest there. I'm going to have the arms behind me, but I'll still have the logo on there. That'll be fun.
I think they just
show.
I think their sacrifice was that they were to let Thrawn get a quick getaway out of the new galaxy.
Well, that was Morgan's sacrifice. She bought him the time because obviously Ezra and Sabine and Ahsoka would have just mowed through those troopers and got on board the ship. But you needed to have Talzin there, or not Talzin, or Elsbeth there to buy
the Talzin sword.
The time they needed.
Yeah,
had to buy the time they needed because Thrawn was not going to negotiate with Ahsoka, the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker.
That's right. There will be no negotiating with the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. So again, more of this sort of insinuation that he knows exactly who Anakin Skywalker is, and there's even more of that at the very end. I do think we need to get to some of these super chats because they're super, and we're not even halfway through the episode. Let's start with Calvin McPherson. Calvin says, if you're feeling disappointed about the limited screen time for Balin, we haven't even talked about Balin yet. Keep in mind, he probably got the most important scene in the whole episode. Just wait a couple of years and see. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We talked about where Balin went. We didn't talk about Balin himself.
Right. Turtle Wars says, in celebration of another season of Star Wars stories completed, I will again match all super chats tonight up to $500 and donate the money to Rancho Obi-Wan RFR number 1. Well, thank you, Turtle Wars. That's great. So all super chats matched up to $500 donated to Rancho Obi-Wan. Thanks, man.
Great. That's coming at a great time.
Very, very kind of you to do. Rock Lee says, that is, I've heard this too. This is Abeloth calling to Balin. In the EU, she will lure Force sensitives to her, manipulate them. Balin doesn't realize he's playing with fire. Maybe. I just, look, I'm just glad that the EU is providing the service that I always wanted it to, which is just to be a farm team for the real stuff. That's what it is. They're able to pick and choose the best things and put it into real Star Wars, canonical Star Wars. That's always what I wanted out of the tie-in material. I never had any desire for it to be canon. Still don't. I would not lose any sleep over the fact that any book or any comic was rendered non-canon, unless it was, maybe a film adaptation, something like that. But I've heard about this Abeloth thing. I don't know about it. I don't care to know about it until it becomes canon, and then we can talk about it. I said Abeloth.
Abeloth, yes. I'm going to school you. Abeloth comes from the Fate of the Jedi novels.
Yeah, I don't care.
She's the mother of Mortis. The mother. You have father, son, and daughter. What about the mother? Well, that's Abeloth. And these novels, so Abeloth was sort of haunting Luke Skywalker. And that's what that series is all about. But we've seen that while Filoni and the gang will cherry pick some things from the old expanded universe, I really don't see Abeloth being among them. I just don't. I don't think that that's something that Dave Filoni wants to play around with. Someone else's interpretation of anything having to do with Mortis is probably something that Dave Filoni is not going to touch. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think
might be wrong. We might see Abeloth, but I think that the odds of seeing Abeloth are approximately 375 to 1. Yeah. So
here's Scott. Scott says, have listened to every show but never catch it live. Now's my chance. Good series, great host, best podcast. Thanks, Scott. It's very nice of you. May the force be with you. There's very generous super chat there. Sal B. Crumb says, call me crazy, but after watching that season, I would have settled for a somehow Thrawn has returned and then jumped right to the anticipated season 2 action. I kid. Hashtag just enjoy Star Wars. Well, thank you, Sal. Wow. The zombie troopers. I mean, when you talk about things that you never thought you would see in Star Wars canon, like zombie troopers. I mean, this was something that was done in some of the expanded universe novels. They were they were novelty. They were novelty novels. I mean, they were fun. It was at a time when The Walking Dead was really going crazy in terms of its popularity. Everybody loves a good zombie story. And that never happened really in Star Wars. And, some of the licensees were even creating mashups of Star Wars characters with zombified features. It was happening. My God, it was happening in the Marvel universe, the DC universe. Everybody was doing zombie mashups. It was a fad. And it was a kind of a gimmicky thing. But here it is. And I loved every minute of it. It helps that it's in October. Everyone's thinking about things that go bump in the night. But I just needed somebody just to say, they come back from the dead now? They come back from the dead now.
Yeah. They die now? They die now. Wait, no, that doesn't work. Well, I know what you're saying, though. Death Troopers, one of my all-time favorite expanded universe novels. Death Troopers. That's what the zombie troopers were called. Now they're night troopers, but they were originally called Death Troopers. And then the tall black armored stormtroopers in Rogue One became Death Troopers, thus making the zombie troopers become night troopers. Night troopers, of course. But yeah, they're
Then we
great.
get
I was so
real-
happy to see them. I really enjoyed this novel. I recommend it. It's, whether it's canon or not, it can easily happen in the current Star Wars universe as far as canon goes. And it's like Jason said, it's kind of a novelty story. It's a one-off, but it's a lot of fun. The audiobook is absolutely gruesome with the sound effects they use and stuff, sound effects of like tearing flesh and pools of blood bubbling.
The subtitles
stuff.
this week had eerie cracking or creaking bones cracking, growling, grunting with these guys. Then it got real meta where you actually had a Death Trooper at one point. You had a Death Trooper.
That's right. Yes, yes.
A dead Death Trooper.
Right. And still with those strips of red cloth.
Yeah.
Which we don't know what the significance of that necessarily is yet. But it must be something.
I think we have to assume it's Night Mother magic or Great Mother magic. That's what gave them the ability. It's what kept them together. I had somebody in the chat making fun of me last week because I said, I was disappointed that the troopers didn't show any, metaphysical abilities or anything like that. And they're like, why would you think that? Well, because of the red tape, because of the fact that they were called night troopers. And we know that the majiks, that's majiks with a K, was likely animating them. We were just an episode too soon. I thought they were dead from the beginning. I assumed that they were an undead army, but I'm glad that it finally paid off into those night troopers. Thought it was very cool.
Absolutely very cool. And we got a glimpse of underneath the helmet of one of them, and he had all the proper zombie look, even though he'd probably only been dead for 30 seconds. he decomposed about 30 years worth while he was
maybe it was
maybe he was just naturally ugly to begin with,
or just an ugly dude. Yeah, or maybe it was the reanimation magic that caused him to. He had to give up his good looks, I guess. But no, the big sort of come to Jesus talk between Thrawn and Morgan Elsbeth. The Jedi are advancing swiftly. At this rate, they make it on board the ship. That would be problematic.
Yeah.
We require a little more time. And he just kind of looks at her. And it finally, she, takes her a beat. And she's like, I understand.
Oh,
for the Empire. And then as he walks away, though, what does she say?
Yo,
Empire, nothing for Dathomir.
For Dathomir.
So her loyalty, what she's really into it, despite that she may have had business dealings and loyalty to Thrawn back in the day, all that, her real loyalty is the reemergence of Dathomir that's going to be populated by the Great Mothers and all those dead bodies once they get the magics flowing on that planet. So she said it out of earshot of Thrawn. So that tells you that that was her motivation all along. She ends up falling to the saber of Ahsoka Tano. But that's what I feel like she has the most realized story of all the characters, I think, in this season.
Absolutely.
And man, can she fight.
Yeah.
I love her. Her sword play is fantastic.
I like that one move where they lock blades and then they both do they roll. They do a little steamroller on the floor. They roll along with each other. I like, that's cool. I thought all of the fighting throughout this whole episode, the hand-to-hand stuff, the blaster stuff, the saber dueling, I thought it was all just great, man. I just, like I said, it felt like a Star Wars movie to me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I never once did I think that they were cheapening out on any of the visuals. That's Yeah.
And the fight choreography was great.
Yep.
In all the battle sequences there when they were at the Stonehenge and doing their thing. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you say, the hand-to-hand stuff with the trooper, the zombie troopers and all of that, all of it was just fantastic. I do like what Thrawn says, "Take us out." Did you notice that when he finally gets ready to leave? A little Captain Kirk reference there.
Oh, was
Take
it?
us
No,
out.
I didn't notice that.
When have you
Because
ever
I'm
heard
not
someone
thinking
say,
about
"Take
stupid
us
Star
out"?
Trek when I'm watching my Star Wars.
Well, maybe they shouldn't put Star Trek in my Star Wars.
No, I
Take
don't
us
like that
out.
at all.
Take us out when we go to hyperspace.
BFD, take us out. Stupid Kirk. So I don't want to talk Star Trek during my Star Wars. You ruined it, Swank. You ruined it. The whole season ruined.
You guys should hear Mac just go on about Trek on the old Jedi Council threads.
Oh, that's not true.
Matt
I
can-
don't say
Oh,
anything.
Matt can spin
Except with Picard, I
yards
enjoy
about
Picard.
Trek. Yeah, right.
I enjoy
right,
Picard,
right.
but I'm certainly not getting all giddy over some
No one's giddy over here. I'm just pointing it out. When have you ever heard anyone say anything as far as like, take us out in Star? Get mad at Dave Filoni. I didn't write the GD line.
Take us out.
Take us out.
Take us out, number one.
I mean, I guess he couldn't say punch it, could he?
Take us out, Mr. Spock.
All right, so here it is. This is the big moment. This is what the Sabine fans have all been waiting for. She pulls the saber. She masters the force pull, brings the saber to herself, a la Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back, and bang, cuts the zombie death trooper right in his head. Look at that. What a great shot that is, with the blade going in, the green witch mist or whatever the heck it is pouring out of the zombie crusty. It's so good. It was great.
It was a great moment. It was a great moment. And it was a great moment because this has been getting set up since the very first episode. And so we got the payoff. I believe we predicted something like this would happen. But it was nice when it did. And I'll talk about my reaction to the moment because it surprised even me. When the saber flew up into her hand, I audibly went, yeah, and pumped the fist up in the air. I did. And it surprised me. It surprised me, and I'll tell you why. Because at the end of The Force Awakens, when Rey reached out and pulled the saber, you thought it was going to Kylo, but it went to Rey, and she held it and ignited it. In the theater I was in for the first screening of that film that I was at, the crowd all cheered, but I wasn't feeling the moment. I just didn't feel as connected to Rey in that moment. And I was like, damn, I'm missing out on something here. Everyone's so excited. And I'm like, whatever, But for this one, I just, fist pump in the air. And I was happy to see it happen. So obviously, I've grown much more connected to the character of Sabine than I ever was during the Rebels series. And that's what is one of the true virtues of the Ahsoka series, for me at least, is it forced me to give Rebels a second chance and made me appreciate Rebels more. A lot like I've heard a lot of people say the Clone Wars series made them look at the prequels in a different light. And they found themselves liking the prequels more as a result of the additions to mythology provided in Clone Wars. Well, I feel that way with Rebels and the Ahsoka series. And I was really very pleased to see that we weren't going to have to wait for season 2 or wherever the continuation of this story is going to happen to see Sabine finally come into her own as a Force user after it being presented to us as a potential in, I think, every episode of this season. There's been something in there indicating to us that Sabine is going to sooner or later crack the code and play ball. And it finally happened. And it did in spectacular fashion. She stuck that blade right through that guy's head. Quality kill. We also got some decapitations in this episode, which Disney has largely been avoiding. Decapitations or dismemberment of any kind at because of lightsaber blade. Disney's been avoiding all of that, and we get it finally. I mean, true, when Ezra decapitates that one trooper, it's behind a
but that's sort of like what George did with Django, and you see the head roll. You do see the head roll. The only thing that really disappointed me with the Sabine moment is I wanted the Force theme. When she was pulling the saber and it was sort of rattling on the floor, I wanted the Force theme. I wish Kiner would have given it to us. He didn't. He gave it to us very quickly thereafter when Ezra did his massive Force jump. So we got the Force theme there. So he's clearly saving it for the big moments, though. I thought there's a variation of it. There's a few notes because I went back and I replayed it and I'm like, okay, I kind of hear it there. But when with the big Force jump onto the Chimera from Ezra, he's not subtle about it. He plays the Force theme loud and proud, and I love that. And then, of course, with the revelation earlier in the episode, or the recommitment of these two together, when Morgan Elsbeth says to Ahsoka, your friends are dead, you're going to die here alone. And not alone, Sabine's there. She decides to not go with Ezra. They had this whole thing planned where she was going to force push him, and then he was going to force pull her onto the Chimera. She decided not to do that. She wasn't going to abandon Sabine or abandon Ahsoka, and I love that. So I liked that she was there. They were pretty sneaky about the way they did it, because you see her, the last scene with Sabine is she's running towards the Chimera, and then you've got the final battle between Elsbeth and Ahsoka. Turns out she didn't go on the Chimera. So, and this, of course, turns out to be her last stand as we hear the Great Mothers. I thought there might be potential that she could come back to life. But when the Great Mothers say Morgan is dead, it's probably over. It's over. I don't think they would. Term. I don't see her coming back.
You saw the green puff of smoke come out of her wound.
Right.
That's a strong indication that you sprung a leak. And, just slice the belly, don't impale her, whatever you do.
No, if they would have impaled her, right. That would have been easy. She'd have just a flesh wound. She'd have walked away. But the slice, the green smoky stuff, she gone. She out of here. And it's a shame, but like you said, Jason, her character had a beginning, a middle, and an end. I had meant to rewatch the season 2 episode that introduced Ahsoka and the Mandalorian. It also introduced Morgan Elsbeth. Right. What was the reason? Somebody in the chat, I'm sure, can help out. What was the reason that Ahsoka was hunting Morgan? Why was she hunting him? I mean, hunting her. She had a connection to Thrawn. She knew where Thrawn was.
But so why does that lead to her being arrested and held as a prisoner by the New Republic? Because Ahsoka thought she had information about Thrawn.
She was a warlord, so she was sort of an illegitimate ruler of that. Yeah.
Was she a warlord? Okay, so she was just being.
I think she was a criminal. I think that's what it was. She was a
war criminal, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe a wanted war criminal because of her work with the Empire. I couldn't remember, and I thought I'd give myself a rewatch, but I just didn't have any time. What was the reason Ahsoka went hunting down Morgan? Because she thought Morgan had information about Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Which she did.
But obviously Morgan didn't reveal that information to Ahsoka, nor did she reveal it to the New Republic. And the New Republic didn't even seem to consider the return of Thrawn, the potential return of Thrawn, to be a legitimate threat in the first place. So why did they imprison Morgan Elsbeth? But if you say, Jason, she's a warlord and she maybe had overthrown that planet or something with her HK droids and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of that's sort of the way I thought it. Okay, so Sabine did not walk away from her master, so Sabine's got one up on Ahsoka there. I like that. Thrawn's final communication with Ahsoka. Now, Thrawn and Ahsoka have never met, right? They've never been in the same room, I don't believe. So
Who, Thrawn and Ahsoka?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Ahsoka was not around during season 2 and season 4, or season 3 and season 4 of Rebels. She only appears at the very end of the very final episode as Ahsoka the White, with the staff, with the ring on top of it, and she and Sabine go off on an adventure. So yes, she and Thrawn was introduced to Star Wars Rebels in season 3. Yeah. So yeah, they never cross paths. And Thrawn brings this up in the dialogue. It's a shame we never met.
I regret we never met face to face. But still I know you because I knew your master. I concluded your strategies would be similar. One wonders just how similar you might become. That's a little mind screw that he throws in there at the end.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure he realizes that the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker probably carries all kinds of baggage, which she does. Long live the Empire. He calls her a Ronin, too.
Yes.
This is where a Ronin such as you belongs, a wanderer, someone that doesn't really have a home, that's always out there trying to be a do-gooder, protect, maybe a guardian, something like that. And then he gets the heck out of there.
Samurai who severed links to the master in the clan.
Yes. Is that what it is?
I think roughly. Okay. Roughly, I believe. And I mean, that applies to Ahsoka, obviously. She has no master. Her master was Anakin. She has no clan. Her clan were the Jedi.
Right.
So,
if you're keeping score, what do we got here at the end of season 1? You've got Balin's story. It seems like it should be just beginning. He is looking for the Mortis gods or some sort of primal, prehistoric power that's the source of all force, I guess you could say. The source for the force, not Rebel Force Radio is the source for the force. The source for the force, he wants to reboot everything. You got Shin, she's going off to live with the Red Bandits. Thrawn ends up going to Dathomir in the main galaxy, carrying what we think are the bodies of the ancestors of the witches. Ahsoka and Sabine are with the naughty.
Yes.
And who's watching over them? But guess who? The very end. Anakin Skywalker with that smile as he sees Ahsoka and Sabine together. I guess there's just a look of pride on his face as he sees the relationship, the solidification of that relationship of master and apprentice. He sees Ahsoka carrying on his legacy, the legacy of the Jedi. But this is open to interpretation too. I mean, we don't want to. I mean, my God, that we can't ignore Mortis. We can't ignore the father, the son, the missing head of the daughter. It's right there, larger than life. Could it be? Just going to throw it out there. Could it be that Anakin has already replaced the father? That this is tantamount to the father of Mortis, the new father of Mortis, watching over potentially the last final journey of the new daughter, and then that would lead lead you to question who might the son be. If Anakin's the father, if Ahsoka is the daughter, who would the son be? Could it be Ezra? Could it be Balin? Could it be Jason Syndulla? Who else is out there? Who could it be?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, you can interpret the Mortis trilogy as the thinking, that Anakin might be the rightful heir to becoming the father.
Mm-hmm.
There when Balin was standing on that sculpture of the Mortis father, he was looking off in the horizon, and you could see another citadel or temple or something, and it had light coming out of it. Like light was shining way off on the horizon. Did you notice that?
No, they show him. They show his
him,
perspective.
yes,
what
they
he
show
sees.
what he's looking at and what that sculpture is pointing at. It appears way off in the horizon. There's
I don't have a shot of that.
a pyramid, and it looks like a shaft of light is coming out of it. It could be another Malachor type place, or it could be the source of all power in the galaxy. That's what he's chasing, and that's what the folktales about Paradia were all about. But it's such a shame now that they're going to have to come up with some sort of trickery to continue this guy's story. And it seems like a lot is riding on this guy's story. So, what's next? What's going to happen? We don't even know about a season 2 of Ahsoka. So when is this story going to come to completion? Obviously, when season 4 of Rebels wrapped up, we had no idea it would be continued as a live action Ahsoka series. But here it is. Season 5 of Rebels is essentially this season of Ahsoka. And I just don't want to wait 5 more years to get resolution to this story.
Yeah.
That's also, that speaks volumes about some other of my frustration about the storytelling and the way they roll out the narrative for this, is that all of this whole season seems to be one giant setup for something. They're leaving all these breadcrumbs on the trail for us to follow. But wasn't this story itself set up 5 years ago by the season finale of Rebels, and then reinforced a couple years later in season 2 of The Mandalorian? And then when we finally get to the story itself appears to be nothing more than just a big setup for whatever the next thing is. It's like, when are we going to get to the story? You keep dragging your tails. Ray Stevenson might not be the only actor unavailable when you finally are ready to tell this story. And did Star Wars learn anything about what it's like to lose a major element of that's behind a character when Carrie unfortunately passed away? I mean, it's like if we keep dragging our heels on actually getting to the meat of the story, then who's going to be left?
Yeah.
All the actors are going to be gone. All the fans are going to be gone. Who are we going to be telling a story to?
I mean, I definitely was getting tired of just laying track, laying plot, never circling back and having any of it pay off. What was good about this episode is we did get some resolution. And this is not about having every question answered. And I'm so tired of people saying that that's what I'm expecting or what you're expecting. That's not what it is. But it's at least circling back instead of just plunging forward, never giving you any information. And again, we're not talking about characters that are mysteries to us. Ahsoka Tano is not a mystery, or shouldn't be a mystery, to any Star Wars fan that's been paying attention for the last 15 years. Period. Have your mystery boxes with other characters, not these well-established characters. But Ezra's in the main galaxy with Hera. We get to see them reunited. I did love the bit with Chopper. It was like, Lassie coming up and smelling Timmy and realizing, hey, everybody, it's Timmy. He got out of the well.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. And, but there was a lack of emotion. We had Ms. Kathy. She sent us a very nice super chat here. She says, I'm confused. Why didn't Hera, Space Mom, run to Ezra and give him a hug? Why didn't Sabine, Space Sister, want to talk about what they'd been through the last years? Why was this announced as a series finale instead of a season finale? Well, I don't know about it being. I didn't see it being called a series finale.
I'm familiar with this.
Where did you see series finale?
I learned of this right before we started the show. I was eating a sandwich, and Wendy was talking, and I was waking up from a nap. And right as I came across this information, Wendy is like, "You're not even listening to me. You're looking at that phone." And so I'm like, "Oh, I gotta get ready for the show." That
Show
didn't
prep.
work. But
You
what
gotta
I
know
read,
show
what
prep.
I read was apparently to promote this episode of Ahsoka, whoever is running the Star Wars official social media channels had attempted to promote this show as the series finale, not season finale,
Maybe they're British.
series finale. So I think it was just maybe a screw up. I mean,
I think it was a screw
I
up.
wouldn't be looking for any sort of finality in a social media post like that, and to call it a season finale or a series finale instead of a season finale, I think that just reeks of
That's a
just
screw
not
up.
thinking,
That was an
it
oops.
through. Well, there's Ezra.
Yeah, that was an oops because the Disney Plus had it as a season finale.
Yeah, that was just an oops, right, by
Yeah.
some social media manager who, it just wasn't really paying attention. And then
But
they
I
fixed it.
I
Then they
definitely-
fixed it. So I mean,
I definitely would have liked to have seen some emotion from Hera upon seeing Ezra. And I mean, they cut, who knows what happens after they cut away from the action there. But I would have liked to have seen that. I would have actually liked to have
she
seen.
just looked shocked. I mean, it was just
she
shocked.
shocked? Yeah, but a hug would have been nice.
Or maybe
he
like
was like a
start just
son to
like
her.
crying, she's, oh my God, when it's like he's back from the dead. All right. He flies in. I mean, just the whole presentation. He flies in the same shuttle that flew into the ship in the first episode. And it was Balin and Shin, and they wiped out the entire crew. So
I
now
forgot
they're
about
back.
that. Yes, I forgot
Hey,
about
the
that.
ship is back. Oh, let's bring them in with open arms. At least these guys had blasters ready. And Ezra gets off the ship. He's still wearing his stormtrooper helmet. You'd think he would have taken it off while he's flying the ship. But keep in mind, Ezra, as a kid, collected those helmets. And he would often wear them in combat. And I think he just may have forgotten that he was wearing it. But I mean, it was sort of awkward then to see this night trooper come stumbling off of the shuttle, and no words are being exchanged. But then, like you said, you have your Chopper Lassie moment,
Yeah.
which was, it was. I don't think we're supposed to look at that thing as being like a practical moment between characters. It was almost like just here's Ezra, and it's like the whole series being presented to us. Here's Ezra. He's wearing stormtrooper gear and the helmet and stuff.
Well, he drags the trooper off. He knocks him out, and then he drags him. Yeah, he drags him off. So
yes.
classic
I know
Star Wars.
how he
Yeah.
got there. I'm just saying from the perspective of Hera and the crew.
Oh, right.
Here he
Well,
comes
I want
out,
to know how we got
and then
there.
all of a sudden Ezra's back from the dead, and he's wearing stormtrooper gear. Where's Ahsoka and Sabine? What the hell is going on here? Like, Hera is like we have been watching this whole season unfold. We're like, wait, what the hell? That's how I was reacting.
Well, I
to this season.
want to know how Thrawn didn't know that he was on that ship, and
He did know. Thrawn knows everything goes according to plan. So Ezra, sure, he's back and everything, but his mere return is he's screwing something up. Thrawn has something planted on him in that armor on that ship. Something.
yeah,
He had to have known Ezra was going to jump from the planet to the starship, and he was going to wipe out a trooper and then put on his gear and then escape and fly back to the rebellion once they got back in the game. Thrawn knew that was going to happen. He steps ahead of all of this stuff. Of course, I planted a tracker in that shuttle, and I put itching powder in the stormtrooper gear just to mess with young Bridger. And he will lead us right to the leadership.
Well,
of the
but now, is that a possibility? Is it according to plan? And did he put some sort of tracker on there? Who knows? As you said, it could take us as much as 5 years to find out what happens. What happens next?
Well, in the
let's-
predictability, he was so sure of what Ahsoka's moves were going to be because they would be reminiscent of what Anakin would have done. And Thrawn has studied Anakin, and he knows all of his strategy and stuff. So he said he was able to predict what Ahsoka was doing. But I didn't really see any payoff to that. I mean, he just kind of blasted them with the engines when they jumped to hyperspace, and they were fine. I didn't get that line of dialogue.
Well, I think the answer to that was just how relentless and over the top he was at trying to extinguish them. I think that's what it was. He's not going to take any chances with the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. So my troops are telling me that we downed the ship. Okay, fine. Let's assume it's down.
Yeah.
Now let's get the ground troops in there and take care of them. You know, what does he say? Rain fire or something like that on them. Something like that. We should go to the phones. We got a lot of people waiting here. So
Yes, let's do that.
let's do that. We'll start with our buddy Blake. How about that? We'll get Blake's take. We'll see what the Utes are thinking. Hey, Blake. Yo, Blake.
Hey,
Hey, let me give you a
Wow.
chut-chut.
With a Babu Freak greeting there. Very, very well played.
So what's going on, Blake? How did this live up to your expectations?
I honestly thought this episode was pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Before they made it to the very end of the episode, because once I realized there were only a couple seconds left of the episode till it was done, I was mad.
You wanted more. I want more.
I love the whole Mortis stuff like that. I love the whole world between worlds, Mortis stuff, future, past. I love watching that kind of stuff where it's like infinite possibilities. But then they just leave you like that. So I was pretty upset about it.
Yeah, you know what? There is something about, the expression of they stopped right when it was getting good. And that's my biggest beef looking back at this season is that what we ended with, in my judgment, should have been the halfway point of the season. What the season wrapped up with, yeah, I think so. Because as we were saying earlier, it's just like, plot, and they just keep plowing ahead without ever tying things up and or circling back. You got to circle back and pay things off, and they just weren't. So yeah, I'm with you. I wanted more. We're definitely going to get more. We just don't know between the strikes.
Well, yeah, but we also don't know if we're getting a season 2 or if they're just going to leave this into they could put this into an animated show since they don't have the actors.
It's either going to be resolved in a movie or another season, and who knows? Maybe they'll hijack another show like they did
once
with
you've gone live
Book of
action,
Boba
you
Fett.
can't go back to animation to tell the story. You just can't. You just can't do that. That would be terrible if they did an animated follow up to this.
What if it's
just
due to
doesn't
budget
work.
cuts?
Well, some of the things that made the original Star Wars so great was the fact that George Lucas did not have, non-stop resources and money and things
Right.
like that. There were compromises made due to the budget, and some of those compromises led to Star Wars being the great film it was.
Yeah, those limitations can help. So Blake, where do you rank this, buddy? If you're looking across the live action Star Wars series, got 3 seasons of Mando, you've got Andor out there, you got Book of Boba Fett, now we got Ahsoka. I hear a lot of people saying this is their all-time favorite.
I love the special effects. Like, they were really good. Like, in the whole battle scenes and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Because my dad said it's his favorite special effects out of all the TV shows that have been out. It's his favorite special effects. But out of every TV show we're talking about, are we counting, like, are you going to rate them by season? Or
No. I'm just like, where does this, I'm just saying, where does this stack up for you? I don't need you to number it. Is it in the top? Is it in the bottom?
It's like a close second.
Close second?
Behind Mando.
Behind Mando, yeah. Mando is hard to beat, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to beat.
I have to agree with Blake. I still have to put the Mando on that pedestal, but I think this is the best Star Wars to come out of Disney. You know, I put it in my top 3, I guess. The thing that I think was the most effective element of Ahsoka season 1 is the fact that it did a great job of capturing the magic of Star Wars, which to me is the most elusive element when it comes to telling these stories. Is the magic there? And I felt like the magic was here. I felt fully enveloped in the things, those non-definable qualities that make Star Wars so magical. So while I did have a problem with some of the storytelling and keeping the audience in the dark, and at times I wish the story moved along a little bit quicker. I think the story itself was dragging its heels to get started. But all in all, I think this thing fully captures the magic. And that, I think, is a direct descendant of the relationship between George Lucas and Dave Filoni. There's just something there. There's just something there that hasn't been in other Star Wars that's in this. It wasn't in the sequel trilogy. It wasn't in really any of the films. I mean, Rogue One had that magic, but it was more of a, I don't know. It didn't. Well, it did, because you know why? Because Chirrut. And I think Chirrut really gave it a lot of its heart and a lot of that Star Wars spirit. But this show, I mean, it had the saber duels, it had the blaster fights, it had the dog fights, it had compelling characters, but it had the magic of Star Wars.
Yeah,
that's my. So
I agree. I agree with you there.
I can't rate it, but that's the best compliment I can give it.
Yeah,
is that it captures the magic.
It was just a little slow out of the gate for me. Finally got warmed up, started really enjoying it, and then it was over. Kind of like Blake's take. Blake, just get warmed up and it's over. Buddy, really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging with us all season. We love you. And now it's off to bed, okay?
Hey,
yeah?
Yeah.
No, let's make sure Blake... Yeah, please.
You see, Mac would be here all night. Mac would be here till midnight. Go ahead, buddy.
I want to thank you, Jason, Tyler, and all the RFR community for letting me come in here after Ahsoka and talk about Ahsoka, or just talk about Star Wars in general.
Oh,
man. It's been really fun to do.
Hey, that's nice of you to say, Blake.
That is very nice. Very nice.
I don't know how nice we'll be to you once your voice changes, but for now, enjoy.
Well, we'll be nice. I don't know about FJ DeSanto. Look for that. You've been following the drama on RFR, but the feud. I mean, it's really a blood feud between Blake and FJ. It's going to have to be settled only one way, and that's through a really, really serious duel of Star Wars knowledge. I'm talking about trivia, Star Wars trivia showdown between Blake and FJ. It's going to happen. We're going to work out the details. I know Blake's management and FJ's management, they've been talking behind the scenes. So hopefully they'll come to some sort of resolution. But all right, Blake, make sure you're training, you're studying all of your Star Wars trivia, because FJ, he doesn't mess around, man.
No, he does not mess around.
All right, buddy. You have a great night, okay?
You too.
All right. We'll see you. All right. And let's talk to James from Indiana, a Patreon member. Thank you so much, James. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for waiting. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up?
Just enjoying the post Ahsoka Star Wars, feeling and discussion. I really appreciate you guys being here every week with these live shows, and I can't wait until we get to do them again with Skeleton Crew or whatever comes next.
Yeah, I think the smart money's on Skeleton Crew next. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I wanted to bring up something actually, Jason, you brought up earlier about farming the EU for the good and things, which I really appreciate too. I'm actually just kind of getting into some of the EU. I just started actually reading the Heir to the Empire stuff. I'd read the new canon Thrawn stuff, but hadn't got there yet, but I did. But one thing about farming the EU is there's also some bad to farm in, and this may be one thing that I ran into when reading Heir to the Empire. And I actually had a little bit of trivia for you guys to see if you guys can remember this from the original Heir to the Empire book. There is a mention in there, and the question is, what was Lando's exotic drink that he taught Luke how to make? Do either of you remember what that was?
No, but I remember this being a thing.
Yeah.
I remember this being
Jimmy,
a
you
thing.
have any idea?
I have no idea, sir. I don't remember any beverages.
No. Okay. So Luke is he's up one night and C-3PO asks him what he's making. He says, "This exotic Lando taught me how to make," and full stop. He says it's called hot chocolate.
Oh, yes.
Is this at the very beginning when Luke can't sleep and Obi-Wan appears to him for the last time? Yes.
Yes. That's absolutely where it is. And I tell you, my eyes almost rolled out of my head, and I had to put the book down.
Yeah.
I was...
It's this exotic thing called hot chocolate.
So there's some stuff with that. I was like, I'm glad this is kind of no longer canon right now, but it's been great. It's been great other than that kind of thing. Yeah. But what I really kind of wanted to ask you guys about was with this. Do you feel that with Ahsoka and Sabine being stranded on Peridia, and is Filoni kind of setting up allowing Ahsoka and Sabine to kind of handle the mythical kind of Balin, that Mortis kind of story stuff, while allowing the Heir to the Empire to kind of kick off, maybe bringing our big three back in to help out with Hera and Ezra and things of that nature, and being able to divulge that.
You cannot tell a true Heir to the Empire type story where the fate of the galaxy is once again in peril without the big three. You can't do it. You have to have them. And I was thinking about that. Yeah, I think that that's where it's going to. I think they're going to kick the can down the road, and they're going to resolve this in a film where they have the budget to do that, because it's not just one character; it's several characters that they're going to have to bring back. So, and they need to. I mean,
right?
It just wouldn't be right. It just wouldn't be right. If Thrawn is posing now, if this was just one little sector of the galaxy, this is just something happening in the outer rim, sort of like what was happening with Gideon. No, I think you could get away with it not affecting everybody, but no, this is the big time. This is the biggest threat they've had since the Empire.
Right, and well, because they've also brought in Mon Mothma.
Right.
And they've got the whole New Republic at this point. So it's not just kind of like a Moff Gideon and just in the Mando's area. And also, like you said, if Thrawn's really going to be this threat to the New Republic and the everything, it would almost be a bigger crime of the whole argument of like, where was Ahsoka during the fall of the Empire, for it to be, where is Luke and Han and Leia when Thrawn is literally dismantling the new government?
Right.
Right. You, like you said, you can't. There's no way if he's going to be the big bad, then we're going to have to get that back into it. And honestly, I think that as someone who has been a fan of the, OT and the sequel trilogies and the prequel trilogies, I'm all about let's just bring it all in. Let's tell a story with all the characters and really continue building on Star Wars. Because I really think that's what Filoni and Favreau are doing. Is they're not trying to change Star Wars, but they're really trying to fill in some gaps and really build on Star Wars, which I really do appreciate.
Yeah, I think they've got the right take. And I saw some people in the chat saying, well, just recast. Weren't you just saying that earlier? Well, no, you can't recast them now because you've already shown what you can do with Luke Skywalker. You've already done that. You lost your shot. You could have recast at some point before were introduced to Luke Skywalker in these shows, in this series, but you didn't. So,
but you can have Sebastian Stan as Luke Skywalker. You can have Millie Bobby Brown play Princess Leia, and Jeremy Alden can return as Solo. Oh, I can't wait! Recast.
Yeah, can't wait. Dancing Thrawns. There they go. All right, who's next? We've got Leighton. Leighton is calling from Georgia. Hello, Leighton. Leighton, you're late. You're late a ton, Leighton. All right, Leighton.
Well, he's gone.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, hey, there he is. We were about to hang up on you, Leighton.
Yeah, so there's this thing called a mute button. How about that?
Oh, yeah, it's happened to me before many times. What's on your mind?
Chuck, guys. How you doing?
Buddy. Very good. Very good.
So first off, I love the show as always. It was great hearing Blake's take too. Thanks for getting him on. He's become such a regular.
He is a regular. Yeah, you can't do an after show without Blake's take.
Kind of sad we won't get to hear him for a while. But
I know. Just think of how mature he's going to sound when we get another series. We're going to watch Blake grow up. Well, you'll hear him grow up. Yeah,
he'll be like married by that time, right?
Hey guys, what's up? Time for my take. Chut.
Yep. Well, anyway, a couple of things. One, I just wanted to mention. And I know that I think Jimmy had brought this up, but the shot with Balin Skull at the end, I was bummed that he wasn't in the episode, except at the end. But I did love that shot of him looking out, in the direction of the father, pointing towards that shining light on the horizon. It wasn't it wasn't a huge moment, but it did kind of at least bring home like that whole lead up that he's searching for some big power, in this other galaxy, and apparently he's found it.
Yeah,
and that's going to be something, in a later, whether it be season 2 or the movie or something like that. So I'm glad that Filoni brought that.
His chucking Shin to the side still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I know I harped on that last week, but the character is slightly tarnished for me because of that. It still just seems so out of left field.
A buddy of mine said to me today, why did Balin find a statue of himself to go hang out in at the end of the show? I'm like, oh no, that's I had to explain it, It's like, that's not Balin, but I sort of see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was at first. I was like, wow, that's pretty. What is, it's like he, was a prophecy or something. He's got his own statue in that galaxy.
Yeah,
realized the father and the son and daughter. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Jason, what you said about him ditching Shin though, that also, like, for me, that was one of those moments. And I've loved the show. I mean, I'm definitely fanboying about this show big time. But that was a moment where that came out of left field. And I kind of felt like Sabine's, her force powers came out of left field in this episode a bit too. That as much as I loved
out of left field, they've been telegraphing this since the first episode.
She was trying to pull what was she trying to pull? Her cup? She was trying to pull her cup, or sippy cup.
Her cup, yeah. She had a few times where she was trying to use the force, and it was wah wah, and then all of a sudden this episode, it's open the door. Sabine help him, and it's boom, boom, and like, wait, since when can she open doors with the Force? And,
well, she's, I disagree with this. I think she's shown a gradual build up to actually being able to use the Force. It was just last episode when she was able to sense Ahsoka reaching out to her. Now, if you're not sensitive with the Force, you're not going to sense Ahsoka reaching out to you. And I mean,
ask Leia.
Yeah, right. It's definitely shades of Leia leaving Bespin. Turn around, go back. What do you mean, Luke? What do you mean, Luke? What are you talking about? Well, so it established her as having at least some sort of ability to touch the Force. We know she's been training, and we know Ahsoka saw some potential in her, whereas Huyang does not at all. And even Sabine herself doubts her ability to touch the Force.
Yeah.
But when it really needed to be done, I felt like it was a stronger setup than what we had with Rey in The Force Awakens. Quite honestly, I just felt like Rey had to close her eyes or something. I just close your eyes. That's all you have to do. No, Sabine, at least we know that she's been studying the disciplines. She's been practicing. She's been getting schooled by Ahsoka. Ahsoka calls her Padawan. So I don't think it comes out of left field.
That is a fair point.
But you know something that you brought up, Leighton, that I didn't think about is that she was using the Force to open doors before she pulled that saber to herself, right?
When did she use the Force to open a door?
When they were,
I guess when they were
riding in on the horse thing,
right?
Yes, but I mean,
I kind of thought it was going to be one of those, like, it's not actually her doing it, but they had Ezra reached out and you had the little Force sound happen, and then
they were doing it together, weren't they?
And you had another Force sound. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, they were doing it together. So I kind of thought, like, oh, well, maybe she's just she's trying to lend support to him, but they were they were all doing it. Actually, I've got the image right here. They were all doing it. So Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra. So, who's to say whether Sabine really had much impact in that? Because I think they were all working on the door.
Right.
So the turning point is the saber coming to her hand. I think that's it.
Right. Maybe the door is more of a kind of a boost to her confidence more than anything else.
Yes, then she had the ability then to push him up as he was doing the big Force jump. Great thoughts though, Leighton. Thanks, buddy, and thank you so much for your support and the kind words and all of that. We just appreciate it so much. You guys are just the absolute best, even when we disagree, especially when we disagree. Not some of you.
I enjoyed this scene because I just, we never really saw anything like this from Star Wars before, where the heroes are riding their mounts underneath a Star Destroyer while it fires at them. It's like, wow, man, that is some intense stuff. I really enjoyed the visual of all of this. Great action sequence.
You think Ezra felt a little emasculated riding behind Sabine there, though?
No. I don't think the thought crossed his mind at all.
Probably not. All right, Scott from North Carolina is on. Hey, Scott.
Good evening, guys. Chut. Hope y'all are doing well.
Chut.
So I've been enjoying y'all's conversations about the show and been listening. I called in, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe last week. I don't know. Tyler got my message over to you about the Purgils being Purgils and not space whales. We don't call the Banthas hairy elephants or the Ewoks hairy bears. But I digress. But yeah, so I've watched this with my wife. My wife has not watched Rebels. She did not really watch the Clone Wars. If she watched it, it was with me watching it and, her doing her other stuff in the background. But I've watched the Clone Wars and Rebels. So we're watching it from, I guess, two different perspectives. And whenever this ended last night and the credits rolled, she said, I don't know what that was, but it was disappointing. And that's like, I don't know. For me, I feel like what y'all are talking about, how they introduced Ahsoka to the people in the first few episodes, 4 or 5 episodes, where she was very sulking and not very, I don't know, it just seemed off. It was like that for almost all of the characters, if you think about it, in the first several episodes. And I said online in conversation, I said, to me, I felt like the series was missing its Han Solo character, somebody that had the wit and the charisma and the humor. We got it with the droids, but you even had that with the droids in the original, but it didn't have the human or, like a human character in it to give the humor. And I told Tyler, I think we got it with Ezra, but he wasn't there until really last week.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know.
There's no question. There's no question to me, Scott, that this show plays infinitely different if you're a Muggle. If you haven't been following these characters, if you haven't been invested in them, if their animated counterparts aren't informing your experience to some degree, it's a very different experience. And I would say not as good. There's just no way you can convince me that this series plays as well to the great unwashed as it does to those of us that have been following it. There's just no way, because there just wasn't enough meat on the bone with these characters to establish them as brand new.
And
there just wasn't.
They threw so many characters at people that didn't know the animated side as well.
It was,
and that's what she was like, there's so many. I'm trying to figure out who's what and where.
Yeah.
So
there were a lot. There were a lot. Then it got kind of, once they got to Paradia, it was like the same. Spent a lot of time there. It was a lot of him hawing around and back and forth with Thrawn, and it moved a little slow there on Paradia. I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more going on with the New Republic, maybe a little bit more of that action. I can definitely see how your wife would have that impression. Definitely. Thanks for the call, man. Let's see. Who do we got here? We got Marty from Georgia. Hey, Marty.
Hey, chut, fellas.
Chut, man.
Hey, Marty.
Just to firstly say, my roommate who I've been watching the show with, he didn't grow up watching Clone Wars like I did, or Rebels. So he was kind of like, if they did a season 2, I don't know if I need to see that one. And I was sitting over there like, ooh. He's just got to see it all to really appreciate it, I feel like. But that was just his take. So I really kind of agree with the last caller. But I did enjoy the whole show. Being a Clone Wars fan, episode 5 was the coolest one for me. My favorite part about this episode was the scene with Ahsoka and Sabine on the wing. And I noticed the nod to the do or do not. There is no try. I think Sabine said, I'll try.
Yeah.
That's my favorite quote in all Star Wars. So just getting to hear that one, how they said that, that was just a feel good Star Wars moment for me.
Yep. I like that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The whole episode was cool, and the fight scenes were great. I'm excited to see what Thrawn does next, just because I love the character. I think that him kind of stabbing Ahsoka with that, I wonder what you'll become right at the end.
That was a great line.
It was great.
I would have liked to see more. I like that side of Thrawn. I like that he's a mind screwer. I want to see him do more of that stuff than it just standing there overseeing schematics of the battle or animatics of the battle. It could have been more.
The Thrawn hand behind his back look is almost the equivalent of the Ahsoka crossing her arms. I just noticed that as well.
Well, don't you know, Marty, that his character did that in animation, so that makes it okay.
Yes.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Forgive me.
Yeah. If they did it in animation, of course they should be doing it in live action. No, but you know what? Now I know how to pose his action figure. As a matter of fact, I do have his action figure right over here. And guess how he's posed? with his hands.
He's got the hand behind his back.
You know what? All my Imperial officers, they all look best that way.
That's just
on
the
the
Imperial.
shelf.
That's just the Imperial officer look.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do
That's
it. I
just
wish
the
my
look.
Ahsoka figure.
Oh, yeah.
You need more articulation in the elbows to get that perfect body cross. But anyway, thanks, man. Appreciate the call and the Patreon support. Let's see if we got some more super chats here. Oh, look at who's here. Nikki. Always great to hear from Nikki. She says, I would have enjoyed the show more if it was animated or if Sabine wasn't in it. Ouch. Had some great Ezra moments. He's the most like his character. I do agree with you, Nikki, on that. I think he is the best translated from live action. Oh, there's Jimmy Max got his Thrawn figure complete with the hands behind the back, looking very Imperial officery. But
Yes.
Nikki, I agree with you about that. I think he's the best translation. Disappointed we didn't see Zeb. You know, we didn't get a chance to see if he lived up to the hype. Very strange that we didn't see Zeb. It almost makes me wonder if there was a cut scene or something there. It's just odd.
Not likely.
Why do it? Why show him in one show and then not? I guess they got to leave something out there, right? They can't just blow their whole wad in one season. But
it would have made more sense if Zeb served in the role that Carson Teva served when they were on the planet Cetos and the X-Wings were flying over the water looking for Ahsoka. Wouldn't it have made more sense if Zeb was flying one of those X-Wings? I don't know. Maybe it would have been too much of a distraction. And then you have to think, well, what do we do with Zeb then for the rest of the series?
right, he's on the sidelines, and it's like that would be so out of
Yes.
character for Zeb. He'd want to be in a ship going to help, not playing politics.
Right. So I think with them establishing in Mandalorian season 3 where Zeb is and what he's doing, he's training pilots at that base. That at least gives us a
here's an
sense of
idea,
location for him.
What about this? What if, Jim, that is exactly what they intended and they had to value engineer it out? The show budget just wouldn't allow. So they bring in Teva, sort of stand in for Zeb.
You know, they could have sacrificed a couple of those hermit crab guys and use the time to animate Zeb instead. But I just don't think he fit into this particular story.
Probably not.
I think when Star Wars Rebels season 5 comes back as a live action show, then you'll see Zeb there.
Media Rav, thanks very much for the super chat. It says, I loved Clones and Rebels. I loved Clones and Rebels, Ahsoka, but hated this show. We've learned nothing. The characters and story were so poorly written. So many terrible episodes propped around that incredible episode 5. So disappointed and sad. Well, you know what, Media Rav, you're definitely not alone. A lot of people feeling the same way you are. There's a whole range of thoughts about this show. It's very, I want to say it's divisive, but it hasn't. It's not divisive in the way Last Jedi was divisive, where people were really angry at each other. There's just a huge range. You know, there's people that absolutely love it. There's the people that are really ticked off, and then there's a whole lot of people in the middle. With Last Jedi, it was like you loved it or you hated it. There was nothing in the middle. With here, it's different. Fart party.
Well, I mean, it's hard because the story doesn't really stand on its own. It requires the animated shows to set them up, including the whole notion of Anakin Skywalker even having a Padawan. That's something we've gotten used to over the past 15 years, but there's a whole ton of Star Wars fans who don't realize that. So it would have been nice if this thing was a little more self-contained and had a real point to the storytelling this season, which it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
It just needs to get there a little sooner than it is.
Agree.
That might just be me being impatient, but like I said, this whole series was set up 5 years ago with the season finale of Rebels and reinforced in season 2 of The Mandalorian. I would have expected more than just constant setup.
Yeah.
And it's been a fun ride the whole way through. I've enjoyed this ride, don't get me wrong. And like I said, the magic of Star Wars is intact, but the storytelling's a little undercooked. Is
Fart
that by
party-
design? I don't know.
No, I don't think it's ever by design. Fart Party says, cheers, boys. Love the show on a whole. Thanks again for even more amazing content. Another great series of after shows. Appreciate and love all of the hard work and dedication. Thank you. Star Wars is forever. Indeed it is. Thank you very much. Always great to have you in the chat and all your support. Here's Sal B. Crum. Streaming shows have taught us is that the storytelling is very linear, no twists or surprises. What they lead you to believe will happen is probably going to happen. Not saying it's bad, but we always go nuts with theories. Sal, you're onto something, buddy. You absolutely are. 9 times out of 10, what do they say about the fastest way between 2 points or whatever, the shortest distance between points is straight across? Yeah, the most logical, what is it? Something razor, they say. The most logical explanation is usually the explanation. It's usually the one that is doesn't take so much creativity to spin, and that has been the case pretty much with every show. There has not, I can't think of one big, huge surprise twist that any of these shows have had. Yet we go around with our theories of, Marok is Ezra, and it doesn't happen, So that might be, part of what sets up the expectations or these crazy theories. And the writers just sit and laugh. And we know that because Dave Filoni used to just laugh and laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was very cruel.
Leighton's back. He's got a super chat. He says, whoa, lag ate my message. So here's another. Oh, well, you didn't have to send another. Just want to know if the Ahsoka Sabine backstory reveal finally satisfied you old impatient Star Wars fans. Love the show. Keep it up. Did it satisfy? Yeah, it satisfied. It satisfied me. I'm with Jim. I still want to know why Sabine was chosen. What was it about Sabine that made Ahsoka go, that's who I'm going to train, especially when Ahsoka had been out of commission for such a long time. She hadn't been a Jedi, but she's going to take on a Padawan. There had to have been some major circumstances that would have, 1, put her back into that position, and 2, choose Sabine, of all people. I mean, why not Jason Syndulla if you're going to train somebody? Why not?
And they talk about in this show, like, the bond between Ahsoka and Sabine and how they, always work best together and all of this stuff. Ahsoka and Sabine barely spoke to each other in the Star Wars Rebel series. So this relation, this strong bond and relationship that they developed is all something that doesn't really have much of a foundation, in my opinion. And I would have liked to have been exposed to that foundation early on in the series so I could relate more with these characters. I found it difficult to relate with them, and it affected my analysis of the whole first season because we were kept in the dark so much as an audience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine to be kept in the dark about a couple of things, but essential elements that's driving the entire story, and you don't reveal to us what those elements are until the final episode of the season, is haphazard. It's haphazard storytelling.
Well, let's
and it frustrates me to no end.
Let's break it down to its simplest elements. Stories involve characters and conflict and goals, and what do the characters want? If we went down the list, what do you got as far as character motivation? What does Ahsoka want? She wants to stop Thrawn.
She wants to prevent another war from happening.
Right. What does Thrawn want?
He wants to return to the galaxy and bring the Empire back to its former glory.
Okay. What does Morgan Elsbeth want?
Well, as we discover in this episode, she wants to bring the Night Sisters back to Dathomir and return that planet back to its former glory. And she also wants to ascend to become a Night Sister or Night Mother, or however you want to define.
Right. And what does Ezra want?
To go home.
What does Sabine want?
To find Ezra and bring him home.
Okay. Right. So the problem with all of that is that it either gets resolved immediately, like you know what it is immediately, and it gets resolved. For example, Sabine wants to find Ezra. Boom, done. Right? Or in the case of Morgan Elsbeth, you have to wait till the last episode to find out what's really driving her. And Thrawn, yeah, okay, he wants to come back to the galaxy and he wants to restore the Empire to its former glory, but how? What makes him think that he can do it? What's the ace, up his sleeve?
Where is he of the Empire's defeat and the death of the Emperor? Obviously, this information had been shared with him at some point, but did he think did he carry on the hope for years and years that he would return to an empire that would greet him with open arms and throw a parade upon his return? When did he realize that there was no empire to come back to?
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously the dreams or the communication that the great mothers were having with Morgan, that may have been his source of news.
That filled him in.
Yeah.
That was his cable news network, where communiques with Morgan Elsbeth from the other galaxy.
Ben Bamboo,
but that's kind of irrelevant. I mean, we know that Thrawn understands what the state of the galaxy and the defeats that were served to the Empire. He understands all that.
Ben Bamboo says, well, Sabine wants to train under Ahsoka too. Like that's her goal. That's her motive. I don't think so. I mean, I think that's a tactic. The training is a tactic to what? To get Ezra.
Yeah, I don't think she necessarily desires it, but it is something I think she was disappointed when Ahsoka left her high and dry. I think that was a big disappointment for Sabine. And I think, that she felt abandoned by Ahsoka and developed probably crazy trust issues with Ahsoka, lack of trust issues, and Ahsoka just split, right? She's good at just disappearing. So that probably made Sabine feel a bit despondent and a failure as well. Her family had been wiped out. Her planet had been wiped out. And her friendship had been wiped out with Ahsoka, and her mentorship had been wiped out. So she felt lost, and she felt abandoned. And so I think it's with reluctance that Sabine returns to being a Padawan. But now she's probably heavily motivated by studying the Force, because she's actually been able to control it and find her Force touch. And then on top of it all, you got the spirit of Anakin Skywalker hanging around here on Peridia. Is it Peridia or is it Peridia? That's the other one, People are like,
how can I listen to these guys analyze the show when they can't even say the name of the planet right?
Well, I don't know,
because
man.
It said both ways in the series.
It said both ways.
Chris Hansford says another season of after shows is coming to an end. Please pop up from time to time with live shows until the next series. To me, RFR live shows are just as important as watching the show itself. Well, it's nice of you to say, Chris. And yes, we will pop up from time to time with live shows.
We're thinking about doing some weekly RFRs on the Patreon page. So, because we offer full show video on Patreon every week.
Right.
But because me and Jason have so much fun doing these live shows and we like the interaction with an audience and we like taking phone calls, we're thinking, hey, maybe just for the regular weekly show from time to time, we'll pop up live on the Patreon page for RFR All Access supporters. So as opposed to them waiting for the video until after we're done recording it and we release it with the audio podcast at the same time, this time around, people can actually watch us recording the show just like you're watching us record this show. So that's something we're talking about during the fall and winter. So stay tuned. Join patreon.com/rebelforceradio.
Rich Brendel, I'm Team Jason, Baba Booey. All right, Rich, thanks, buddy. Appreciate the support. We do have some leftovers that we will get to this week on the flagship Rebel Force Radio podcast. So we will get to these super chats, some really good ones. Thank you all very much, because we don't, we don't want you to think we take them for granted. I will definitely screen capture these and we will cover them. But to close this out, we're going to grab one more phone call. Let's go with Victoria from Long Island. Hey, Victoria, thanks for waiting.
Hi, Jason. Hi, Jimmy Mac. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I absolutely loved the finale. Dave nailed it for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was with you, Jason. I had been kind of let down by episode 7 because with that title, Dreams and Madness, I thought, oh, okay, we're going to explore Balin's after. And then it was just, oh, no. Just, reuniting Ahsoka with Sabine and Ezra, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's touching, but,
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like, okay, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
But that finale really just, it delivered for me. I did exactly what Jimmy Mac did when she grabbed that lightsaber. I jumped up and pumped my fist in the air. It was epic.
Yeah. No, it definitely, it helped me. I was on the verge of, I don't know what, of just really losing my patience with the show. But this week did a lot to bring me back. I enjoyed it. I was getting enough payoff with some of the characters and their motivations that I didn't feel like I was more in the dark when, at the end of it than I was when I started. And that was what was really bothering me. I was like, wait a minute, you didn't answer this. And now you got to throw in this other unanswered question on top of it. So it was just a little bit too much. So anyway, well, thanks very much for the call. Appreciate it. Call back and hang out with us again. We'd really love to have you. That's going to wrap it up for this week. I regret that I did not thank Tyler. And not only do we have an episode, an after show to thank him for, we got the whole season to thank him for. So Tyler Page, ladies and gentlemen, our incredible call screener and the official program observer, lining up all the calls, getting the topics out so we know who's going to say what and who is a Patreon member. He's got his list. He checks it twice.
I feel like you had no option to reach out to me to thank me because the phone was just ringing off the hook. Like, I missed a good part of the show.
Well, we like that. We like that when it's a busy switchboard. It was a busy switchboard. The super chats, we got more of those we're going to get to on Rebel Force Radio, the podcast this week. In the meantime, Tyler, anything that we might have missed? Were there any big takeaways, any big ahas that weren't brought up on the show yet?
Not that I can think of, but I do want to say you guys really shot down the idea of Morgan Elsbeth coming back. And I feel like if there's any kind of character who could come back, it's a Night Sister. They could figure out a way to resurrect her at the altar. Although, I mean, that tower collapsed. Like, I get it.
I'd love to see her come back. I would. I would. But it just seems so final when the Great Mother said Morgan is dead. And they didn't grab her.
I don't want her to die.
Yeah, no, she's good.
She served the purpose. That's what Thrawn said.
Yeah.
She served the purpose. And for the storytelling, I believe that is consistent. She serves her purpose.
Maybe she pops up an acolyte in a flash forward or something. I don't know. But, I think we'll see Huyang at Galaxy's Edge with some of these lightsaber building moments.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, he's definitely becoming a fan favorite.
So many callers were curious about the Filoni movie and how this is going to interact with it. I feel like we're just ready and chomping at the bit for some finality and for the next part of this. That's like the overarching theme, honestly.
How does this play into the Filoni movie? Well, I think it's the setup for the Filoni movie, pure and simple. Think of it as the prequel to the Dave Filoni movie. That's what I think it is. Well, Tyler, we could not do these without you, certainly not as well, and maybe not at all. So thank you very much for always being here with us. And you are, speaking of fan favorite, you're definitely a favorite of RFR listeners, and everybody gets to know you with your takes and with your call screening skills. So thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
right.
Tyler.
Yeah.
All right, Jimmy Mac, final thoughts. Ahsoka, Part 8, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Oh, my.
Oh, my. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. C.S. Lewis, as you mentioned, he was the guy who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia series, and the first book of the series was called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And Filoni, of course, is a big fan of Tolkien, and C.S. Lewis was a drinking buddy of Tolkien's. A bunch of literary dudes who would hang out and slam beers and impress each other with their literal knowledge. And he was part of that group. And so I appreciate that reference. I thought there was great fighting in this episode, as I said. I love the trio together fighting the Night Troopers, Sabine, Ezra, and Ahsoka. I thought that was great. I need to look up that Blade of Talzin, where that appears in Star Wars Clone Wars. Somebody said Mother Talzin uses it when she fights Mace Windu. Which doesn't even, I don't even remember that. I'm going to have to go back and watch that. So I thought a very Ezra moment was when he was using the dead trooper's comlink to talk back to the commanding officer who was sending message about reinforcements. And Ezra used that comlink. Yeah, we saw him do that a few times in Rebels. So I thought that was very consistent with his character. A musical reference that I want to point out. This comes courtesy of my son, Michael McInerney, who is a musician. He says, he texted me this, when the Night Troopers get zombified, there's a violin phrase that's a musical reference, identical and rhythmically similar to Camille Saint-Saëns' Dance Macabre, meaning literally Dance of Death. It's a very famous classical piece. You can hear it if you punch up the music on YouTube. It's by Camille Saint-Saëns. It's called Dance Macabre. You'll hear the quote at about 18 seconds in. It's a tritone, which is a famous interval for sounding demonic. So I guess composers have used this moment from this song in demonic moments in film, and Black Sabbath used it in the song Black Sabbath from the album Black Sabbath. So that's from Michael Mack. He says if you watch the scene again, you'll totally hear the violin stabs from Camille Saint-Saëns. I don't know how to say this name. Camille Saint-Saëns. They're actually sending me pronunciations as I'm talking on the air right now. Camille Saint-Saëns, Dance Macabre. Listen to it for Night Trooper references. All in all, on this series, the finale was outstanding. This series had some just great moments. Part 5 is one of the finest moments in Star Wars streaming. The famous World Between Worlds encounter with Anakin and Ahsoka. I still say that stuff is all happening up in Ahsoka's head. I think the big difference is it's not a spirit of Anakin Skywalker because you don't see the blue glowy around him at all during those sequences. But you do see it when he appears at the end of the season finale. You see the blue glow. I think that is the legit spirit of Anakin Skywalker. The other stuff was a manifestation of Anakin that was presented to Ahsoka by the Force. It was up in her head, and she was really working out a lot of problems. And when she says to Anakin in that one moment where she fears his power and what it will turn him into and stuff, and he looks at her and he goes, so that's what this is all about? That's the moment when she's coming to terms with the demons she's been fighting, and she faces her demons head on in that moment. But again, I'm going to say steadfast and say that was a Force vision, and it wasn't the legitimate spirit of Anakin Skywalker. The legitimate spirit of Anakin Skywalker appears at the end of this episode, and it's quite possible he might continue Ahsoka's training with Sabine there on the planet, because they got nothing else to do. All in all, I thought, like I said, this is probably the most Star Warsy of Star Wars we've been presented by Star Wars since Disney has taken over. I have my issues with the storytelling and the narrative rollout, but I think that the seeds have been planted, and a forest of storytelling will grow out of these episodes. I certainly hope so. I think there's a lot for the future of Thrawn as the main antagonist. We have 20 years of storytelling to fill before the sequel trilogy. I think that gives us a wide open field for telling great Star Wars storytelling that isn't painted into a corner by the sequel trilogy as well. So I really hope that this is the era in which a lot of attention is being paid to as far as future Star Wars storytelling is happening, will happen, shall happen. I hope happens. I hope we don't have to wait 5 years to get a payoff. Puff a pig, not in this episode.
All right, that's it. That's it for this week's show, and that's it for Ahsoka Season 1. Don't forget, if you're new to Rebel Force Radio and you discovered us through these after shows, we're here each and every week through the Rebel Force Radio podcast. You can subscribe to your favorite podcatcher of choice. Just look for Rebel Force Radio. Of course, these after shows are also part of that feed, but we're not going anywhere. The after shows are taking a little hiatus, but Rebel Force Radio will be there covering the latest in Star Wars news. We are your source for the Force, and there's more where that came from over on Patreon, as Jimmy mentioned, at rebelforceradio.com. Click on the Patreon banner and you'll get all the details there.
Yeah, lots of new episodes of RFR Q&A, RFR RPG, and the Babu Freaks talking Ahsoka Season 1. You want to check it out, patreon.com/rebelforceradio.
All right, that's it. We'll see you next time. We'll see you later this week for Rebel Force Radio. Special guest coming up this week on RFR. And for these live shows, we'll be back. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one for Rebel Force Radio. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.